OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Right, 7:30 this Thursday morning, I want to say. It feels like it should be next Tuesday, but it's actually still Thursday of this week. You're welcome along to OTB AM. It's Jerry Gilroy and Owen Sheehan with you all the way through until 10 this morning. How do we feel about midweek, under lights, Premier League action? It had the bang of a good night of League Cup, but the results are actually more meaningful in the long run.
Oh, it had the bang of Christmas off it. The sort of cut and thrust of football, every night football that's involving two title challengers and a lot of interesting things. This is the best thing about festive football, is that it's generally too early for the title to be wrapped up. And this year, the way the table has been compressed, everybody's got a chance, mathematically it seems. So every game seems like it matters, and we got a cracker last night. Yeah,
and loads of other kind of ancillary games with stuff interesting happening. Another sending off for Arsenal, but they managed not to lose a game against a team who were actually really good, who could have gone top of the table if they'd managed to win that game. Everton are back, it seems. Their little mid-season blip was not the true reflection of their team. We should really get on to Mourinho and Klopp. The line of questioning afterwards from the Amazon reporter to Mourinho was like desperately trying to get him to admit that his team are championship contenders, and it was, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? Yes, we're championship contenders. Or if he's like, I'm not going to answer that. What's the point? What? You've done those post-match interviews, Owen. Why? What was he doing?
Well, I guess there's just this general frustration that everybody can see the quality that Tottenham have. Everybody can see the string of results that they put together and how close they came to getting something last night, which all suggests that Tottenham can actually go on and challenge for the title. Now, last night could be this moment where Spurs fans will look back on the Bergwijn misses, the Harry Kane miss, and say to themselves, well, that was the moment where our title challenge fell away, and maybe their unbelievable efficiency in front of goal will now start to dwindle, and this will be the start of that. But outside of that, outside of their efficiency in front of goal, it could have been a Jose Mourinho special last night. It could have been one of those snatch and grab results where Harry Kane actually nails that header where he has an opportunity. I kind of give Bergwijn a little bit of a free pass because he's not as much of a finisher as Kane. But there were very small margins last night where you think to yourself, Spurs could have come away with a point or three from Anfield, and in that situation, then, Jose Mourinho has to be saying, of course we're title contenders. So the margins are that thin. So that's why the reporter, I think, was a bit frustrated.
I sometimes forget that there are people who wake up and turn the show on and don't know the results. So Liverpool won 2-1 with a 90-odd minute header from Bobby Firmino, justifying his existence for the last 4 years. Not that he needs to. Anyway, go on. Right, but in the immediate aftermath, Mourinho grabs Klopp and there's a conversation, and Klopp's smiling with those giant teeth because he's just won, and it's like, I am happy, Klopp. You can say whatever you want to me, but you cannot wind me up now, Klopp.
That was a bemused smile, though, wasn't it?
It was yeah, but it wasn't. He wasn't going to respond. He wasn't going to react. Yeah, that was the difference. If it had finished 1-1 and Mourinho gone, oh, we killed you out there, then I think Klopp would have reacted. But Klopp had the power. It was like It was an unusual, I thought, move from Mourinho, in that it didn't land because it couldn't land, because at that point Klopp was impervious to everything. We've got Jose. Yeah. So there's a little bit here where he explains what happened. Have a look.
Yesterday I was telling how many days of work they have with Jurgen, how many days my boys have with me, and today it didn't look that. It didn't look a team that is champion and that was European champion and world champion. That difference was not on the pitch.
So therefore, you would expect the Spurs team to be in the running throughout the season for the title, wouldn't you?
I expect the Spurs team in the next match to try to win it again, and to do that every game. That's what I expect. And in the end of the season, we will see where we are. No more than that.
But you know these players, and these players were in a Champions League final not so long ago. Most of your team.
5.
Yeah.
5.
There's still a lot of experience in that side, though, isn't there, now?
5.
And
five
you adding in your mentality.
5 of them. This is a new team with a different way of play, a different way of think. And we are together for not a long time, and to be able to do what we did was fantastic. Of course, the result is the most important thing, and the result is awful. But the way the team performed, I'm happy.
You had a word with Jurgen Klopp at the end. What were you
I
saying?
told him the best team lost, and he disagreed, but that's his opinion. By the way, if I behave the same way on the touchline like he does, I have no chance to stay there, and I'm out for a minute.
In what
minute
sense?
after.
Because Jurgen was very animated at the end of the first
come
half.
on,
Is
that's
that-
animated. That's animated.
It's animated. I can see why he's very parodiable. But look, you can't. It doesn't land when you lose. That's the problem, right? I mean, I encourage Jose Mourinho to do all this kind of stuff, and I encourage him to take on Jurgen Klopp and try and get under his skin, because otherwise it's going to be a very boring season. I know you said that you can't win the title, but is there? I had a little bit of a bang of, oh no, if Liverpool, like everybody else, is faltering. Everybody else is faltering, but Liverpool actually have the squad depth, it turns out, to manage and survive anything that has happened to them. They have managed to survive. They're like Terminator 2, and I don't know. I would just be worried.
Well, I made this point to Nathan on Monday, and I don't think he agreed with me, was that in a weird way, the amount of injuries that they've got already this season might help them mentally in the long run, that they've actually had to work through a horrific injury to their star player early in the season before the fixtures piled up.
So it sharpens them, and it suddenly jolts them into, oh God, we don't have this guy who is our best player, who was player of the year, really. And we're not going to be able to win without him. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, come on.
And every other team at the moment has to navigate these very short turnarounds, probably looking at a built-up injury list. Every single team will have to go through that. And Liverpool are like, we've actually got this learned experience from the last 2 months. Now, of course, the downside is that the squad gets too thin and everybody gets too tired. But, like, really, I'm not sure if I actually agree with Jose on that front last night. I agree that the margins are so thin that Spurs could have won it on a different night. But I still think, like, you're coming away with 24% of possession. You're coming away where...
And possession.
Like, I get that, and it doesn't matter to Spurs especially, but, like, I mean, Sadio Mane's opportunity in the second half as well was as good as Harry Kane's, and he hits the crossbar, and, like, these are the chances that you can pick up throughout the game, and I accept that possession doesn't matter, but I still think it's brave to go up to Jurgen Klopp and say, we deserve to beat you, because there's one person who doesn't ever accept that, and that's Klopp. Here is Jose on Instagram. The post denied us the victory we deserved. Proud of everyone. Hashtag come on you Spurs. From, of course, his Instagram account, which is the best thing on the internet.
Again, for people listening, it's not a picture of the ball hitting the post. What was it, Owen?
It's a screenshot. Somebody pressing control and the screenshot, whatever it is, whatever the shortcut is, on their Instagram and on the actual stream of the game last night. Of Jose Mourinho looking fairly nonplussed.
It's a picture of Jose.
Yes.
The moment... it was like, oh, look, that thing about the 300 days and the 2,000 days that he talked about in the press conference yesterday, it has the bang of a stand-up comedian who has done his hour, who has got his hour that he will do for the next year. It's down, and he is not leaving that. So you can expect for him to play the hits. The 300 days versus 2,000 days, that is going to resurface. I guarantee you, if they manage to continue to run Liverpool close, he will bang on about that. And don't get your maths wrong. It was only 5 members of the team, not most, 5. 5 out of 11 is not more than 6 out of 11. Jose knows his maths, and he knows that his team are contenders.
I would have it more as a sulking teenager rather than a stand-up comedian, where the sulking teenager has decided this is how he's now going to approach his life. He's never going to speak to his parents again. Look at what you've done to me. I am now going to be sad forever and ever and ever. And that's what Jose Mourinho is doing with the we are a pony, we are not a horse. We are not a contender, we are a mere pretender. That is his shtick, and he is going to stick to that. And last night only hardened him in that belief.
Except he knows now that his team are really good as well. 7:40 this morning. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. I'll tell you what's coming up on the show this morning. We've got David Meyler coming your way in about 5 minutes' time. We're going to hear from Kieran Donaghy, who's now been formally announced as part of the Armagh backroom team at 8:05. We'll talk to him a bit about that, but also be previewing the All-Ireland football final. Louise Galvin is going to join us at around about 8:40 to preview Dublin against Cork in the women's football. And then we have a look back on the history of Gaelic football, the great...
We're basically looking back at how brilliant Mayo were in 1951. If you thought Gaelic football was crap in the 1950s. You got another thing coming after 9 o'clock.
Right, okay. If we'd love to hear from you this morning, though. 0879 180 180 is the number. Talk to us about Liverpool, talk to us about Spurs, talk to us about Everton, talk to us about Arsenal, whatever it is you want to get off your chest. There are, of course, 2 more Premier League games tonight. Phil Egan, good morning to you.
How are you doing? How are you getting on?
What's going on?
Well, we're going to start with events at Anfield last night. Obviously, Roberto Firmino still had the energy after scoring the winner to run the length of the pitch to the Kop end where the Liverpool fans were. But massive 3 points for Liverpool, 3 points clear of Tottenham now at the top of the Premier League after that 2-1 win. Looked like we were heading for a 1-1 draw until Firmino popped up and headed home that Andy Robertson corner in the 90th minute. And Jose Mourinho obviously had that comment to Jurgen Klopp after the game that the best side lost, but Liverpool showing once again that at Anfield they're a different animal. 66 games now unbeaten in the Premier League. Last manager to win at Anfield, Sam Allardyce, April 2017 as Crystal Palace manager. Next manager to visit Anfield, Sam Allardyce as West Brom manager. That's coming up in a few weeks. Southampton are third following their 1-1 draw with Arsenal. They took the lead through Theo Walcott, but Arsenal managed to get an equaliser. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored, but Gabriel sent off for Arsenal, the 7th red card for Arsenal in recent games. Goals scored separates the Saints and Leicester. Leicester 4th, Everton up to 5th following their 2-0 win at the King Power Stadium. Leeds beat Newcastle 5-2 at Elland Road. The 2 goals for Newcastle were scored by Ireland internationals Jeff Hendrick and Kieran Clark. Fulham and Brighton drew 0-0. It was 1-1 between West Ham and Crystal Palace. Sebastian Haller with a contender for goal of the season. He scored a stunning overhead kick to rescue a point for the Hammers. 2 more games tonight. You've got bottom side Sheffield United at home to Manchester United. That game gets underway at 8 o'clock. Before that, at 6, it's the meeting of Aston Villa and Burnley. Former St Pat's and Dundalk midfielder Jamie McGrath scored twice for St Mirren, who shocked Rangers to win 3-2 in the quarterfinals of the Scottish League Cup. So St Mirren will now play Livingston in the semi-finals, the other semi-final between St Johnstone and Hibs. The world's top men and women footballers will be crowned tonight. The best FIFA football awards take place. It's a virtual ceremony because of coronavirus. Very familiar looking shortlist for the men. Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi and Robert Lewandowski in contention. The Australian Open has been delayed by 3 weeks because of the coronavirus pandemic. Usually the first tennis Grand Slam of the year takes place in January, but it'll now start on the 8th of February. Players will have to undergo a 14-day quarantine period when they arrive in Melbourne under local COVID-19 rules. Clare are into the Munster Minor Football Championship final after they beat Limerick by 420 to 110 at the Gaelic grounds. They'll face Kerry in next Tuesday's final. And obviously, a couple of All-Ireland finals this weekend at Croke Park, but the big All-Ireland clash will take place at Alexandra Palace later on today. It's Limerick against Derry, Willie O'Connor against Darrell Gurney in the second round.
How many rounds are there? 100. But like, what's the actual answer?
What have you got? So they're down to the last 32 now. So the top 32 players go straight into the second round.
Right.
So Gurney's in the top 32. Willie O'Connor won his first round match yesterday, so then he goes into the...
And when does it... I always thought it finished after Christmas.
It takes a break for Christmas.
It takes a little break for Christmas, yeah.
Right.
Then comes back for New Year's. So who have you got tonight, Ger?
Sorry, how long's... So, the round of 32 tonight, it's not like round of 16 tonight. They obviously... They show every match, do they?
Yeah, so there's 2 sessions now. There's obviously afternoon sessions and evening sessions. So Willie O'Connor was playing yesterday afternoon.
And how long does it take to play a match?
It depends. Like obviously, the longer you go on in the tournament, the more sets there is. Like so, the final is first to 7 sets. So
how long would that take? A couple of days?
No,
not at all. No,
2 hours.
These lads are machines. They're just hitting trebles for fun.
Right. Sounds like there's a lot of jeopardy there then.
Well, like if it was you and I playing it, it would take days, and like that would be like they take Jeopardy out of it because they're so good. I think is the point you're trying to make, isn't it?
Look, I appreciate the individuals and the level of expertise they have, and maybe shorn of all the nonsense, this is the year to finally tune in.
You just appreciate it for the sport, the antics. You think people appreciate darts for the wrong reason? Is the point?
I think the invention of the Barmy Army was one of the worst things that ever happened to sport, and this is like that on steroids and crack, and it's like no thanks. I'm out. Thanks very much. Forced English fun is the worst type of fun that I could possibly imagine. Imagine the Tories organising it. Well, actually, they would organise good parties, probably. But the Tories organising fun for the poor people. This is kind of what that's what this is. That's what this is.
I think you need to go. I think you need to go to a darts event, Ger, when it comes back to Dublin. So whether it's out in City West at the World Grand Prix or it's the Premier League. And do you know what? If you go and you don't have fun, we'll hold our hands up and say, that's your choice, but I think you'll have great crack.
I've learned in life not to be goaded into stuff anymore. As a younger man, I would have been like, yeah, I'll do that. And now I'm like, I'd say there's probably other things that I could do.
There is nothing that a pitcher of Foster's can't fix in life, Ger, and that could fix your hatred for darts.
Phil, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Bob.
7:45 this morning here on OTB AM. Let's join David Meyler to talk about a remarkable win for Liverpool last night and some remarkable stuff that happened afterwards. First off, Bobby Firmino, one of your favourite players.
Yeah.
That's why he's there.
Oh, it was a beautiful header, wasn't it? You have to give him credit.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And the celebration.
Yeah, and you know what? It was nice. It was nice to see fans obviously back at Anfield and that. So with them there, it was kind of, you almost see him peel away after he heads it in, and he's kind of thinking, I'm going to go off and do my celebration. And then he kind of there's fans here, and he just sprints. So it was lovely to see. But it almost felt that, Liverpool have been knocking on the door the last 10, 15 minutes and weren't going to, score. And then this, obviously Andy Robertson whips in the corner, and then boom, he just gets up. I think it's Toby Alderweireld's marking him. He manages to lose him, gets a yard, and it's just a bullet of a header. It was just a very good header, very good goal, and fully deserved. I know Mourinho came out after and said, that he'd said to Klopp, the better team lost, but look, he's going to say that, isn't he? He's going to back his own side, he's going to back his own team.
It must be great as a manager as well. You can spend the whole week working on shape and trying to create space and making sure that the right people have the ball in the right areas and that you match up really well against the opposition. And then, it's a corner, old school corner, header from the 6-yard box. Thanks very much. Boom. Football is still football.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the commentator said during the game, just after that goal, that Tottenham had conceded the least amount of goals from corners. So obviously it'd be something that Mourinho prides himself on. And look, he can say that, the better team lost. Okay, Tottenham did have some very good chances second half. Certainly the way they played in the first half, they were, had 11 behind the ball, weren't coming out, just saying to Liverpool, break us down. And you kind of seen over the past few weeks, whenever, Tottenham have played, one of the so-called top 6 clubs, they have kind of been a bit more reserved and, managed to catch them on the counter-attack. You look at, prime example is the goal Heung-min Son scores. But certainly, I think if anyone looked at that, with an open mind, you definitely think that Liverpool, were the better team. Okay, I get it, Stephen Bergwijn had a great chance. If that goes in and, Tottenham do go 2-1 up, then it does become a totally different game, But look, at the end of the day, I think Liverpool were far better than them. And they showed, how dominant they are in the Premier League this year.
That's kind of the danger of how Spurs play, is that when you break, you almost need to take every chance you get, and they've been doing that in recent weeks. Is that basically it now for Jose over the next few weeks, is to try and get back to that level where they are taking all their chances, or is there a tweak that you can see to allow them to create more opportunities, to allow them to be sloppy with a couple of opportunities?
Well, I think the big thing was, he changed his formation. That was the big thing. They usually play that kind of 4-3-3, system or whatever, and then they switch to a 4-4-1-1. You could kind of see what he was doing to kind of keep the two strikers together. Obviously stop, Liverpool's fullbacks, bombing forward. They did manage to nullify them in the first half. They're kind of, I won't say they struggled, but they found it difficult. They weren't getting as much joy as they would have liked. Like a lot of the ball Liverpool had was with, the young boy Williams, Fabinho and Henderson kind of just knocking the ball from side to side, kind of looking for that, way through. Certainly in the second half, they kind of, switched back. You could see Sissoko and the Celso switched around, and they kind of took the game more to Liverpool, and that's when they started to create chances. But the thing I would have taken from Tottenham last night, if you kind of exclude the first 45 minutes, was they, in the second half, they did go toe-to-toe with Liverpool, and it made me realise, Mourinho definitely has his mojo back, and he definitely, there was all the mind games, leading up to the game, even after the game. There is a buzz back with Mourinho, and I think the one thing Jurgen Klopp would have taken away, like Tottenham aren't going anywhere. I think they're going to be there for the duration of the season, albeit, if they can keep the front two, obviously that's Son and Kane, if they can keep them fit for the majority of the season, then they're certainly going to be, up around there. If Liverpool keep going the way they're going, I can't see anybody, beating Liverpool to winning the Premier League. But Tottenham are certainly going to be up there.
That's a dangerous situation for everybody now, isn't it? That 3-point gap has been opened, and it seems like the first time Liverpool have started to edge forward a little bit. Do you believe now that Liverpool are just going to get better and better because they've sort of rode out this storm a little bit in terms of fitness, in terms of injuries, and now other teams are inevitably going to have to go through the same thing because of the fixtures pile up?
Yeah, of course. When you lose Virgil van Dijk, there's always going to be that big question mark over your team. Of course, he was a massive loss. And then, they've kind of had to chop and change between different centre-halves playing. But then, like Fabinho, who's just slotted back in there, and it's almost become, normality. They don't miss Virgil van Dijk, which is such a strange thing considering he's one of the best centre-halves in the world. But they are just a machine in the way they turn in performances week in, week out, and they just manage to get results. And of course, look, when you've got the front three that they have, give yourself chances of winning football matches. And of course, the midfield, the energy they bring, it's just remarkable to watch. And people will say I'm biased because I support Liverpool, but if you're an open-minded football fan, then you have to be impressed with the way they go after. Like last night, at times when Tottenham were winning the ball back, they had nowhere to go. Yeah, they were deep, in a low block in their own half. They couldn't get out, but the way Liverpool pressed them and go after them, it's just remarkable. And to think that Liverpool now, in their last 33 Premier League games at home at Anfield, they've won 32 of them. So they just, if you were to weigh it up points wise, to think like of all the games that they've got left playing at home, they'll probably end up winning probably 95% of them. Then you can't see anybody get near Liverpool. And as you said, a gap has now been opened. Jurgen will certainly at this Christmas period look towards January, the kind of, the almost FA Cup third round when that comes the first week of January, that they'll be looking to maintain that gap and even increase it. Yeah.
Just on the midfield that was sent out there by Mourinho last night, Kenny Cunningham on Premier Sports was making the point at halftime that he got it wrong, that Sissoko on the right was a really poor tactical move by Jose Mourinho, and that ultimately that's why we saw such a good performance from someone like Curtis Jones last night. So with your midfielder's hat on, would you have been happy to come up against that Spurs midfield in the way it was set up last night?
I do get where Kenny is coming from. Obviously, when you have like Højbjerg is going to sit in front of the back four, he's not really going to come out of there. Then you're kind of looking at someone like Lo Celso to go and press, and I don't think that's his playing style. He's more of a midfielder who wants to kind of get in the ball, which we've seen for the assist for Son, someone who wants to get on the ball and make stuff happen. I think the big thing was they wanted to stop the fullbacks. That's why he's put more like Sissoko out on the right side. If you look at like a lot of stuff that comes through Liverpool has come through Andy Robertson this season, and I think that's why he deployed him out there to kind of nullify the wing area. So he was. But when you go and try and stop their fullbacks, you have to leave space somewhere, and the space did end up coming through the middle. And look, that young boy Curtis Jones has come on leaps and bounds. The level of performances he's putting in for a 19-year-old is remarkable. He looks like he has a real bright future, and it was almost, the way I would look at it is almost Mourinho's weighed it up with when they've done their tactics during the week and said, like, can we stop the fullbacks, and can we avoid? We give up space in the middle and hope that those players don't have the same level of creativity as the fullbacks would have.
And that might have worked, except Curtis Jones does have that level of creativity.
Exactly. And then you're just kind of hoping, I imagine he's hoping that, someone like Højbjerg and Lo Celso are going to get close to him, thinking he's a young kid, he's 19, can Højbjerg get in and around him, upset him, throw him off his game? But the young fella just keeps rising and rising, and look, he just has a great ability to kind of hold on to the ball, and the way he maneuvers it, and passes and links the play. His link-up play that impressed me most last night was with Mane, how they give the ball to one another, they lend it, there's the little 1-2s, there's a little movement off the ball. And he certainly does have the creativity, and he's a massive plus this season for Liverpool.
So just explain a bit to us about where he plays and what his role will be in the team over the next while. Let's say he gets a run of 10 games here. How would you describe him, and who do you compare him to?
Oh, wow. It's always hard to try and compare players, but look, he's going to play, the way that they're kind of shaping is Henderson will sit and they'll have Wijnaldum and Curtis in front of him. Obviously, they'll be waiting for Thiago to come back, that then becomes the problem. Does Thiago go in and do they push Henderson forward? But if Curtis Jones keeps playing the way he is, then look, you have to stay in the team. What he's looking to do is obviously be the link man between, defence, midfield and the forward line to try and get on the ball and make stuff happen. You can see when he kind of picks it up in those areas, he's well able to dribble in tight areas. He can pick a pass, and then the thing is he's now bringing that level of pressing, the kind of what Jurgen is famous for bringing to this team, that when the midfielders go after players, he's certainly one of them now that's looking to. Probably when I first watched him, it wasn't part of his game, that level of high pressing that we're used to from the Liverpool midfield, but he's added that to his armoury, and he does look like he's well able to do it for the 90 minutes. And when he gets in those areas, I think he plays with kind of a freedom. There's a touch of arrogance about him. There was even a couple of stages last night when it was 1-1, there was a little flick round the corner, there's a little drag back and flick to Robertson. If you're a Liverpool fan, you're watching on, like, the form he's in, the best way to put it for me would be the form he's in. There will be a case for him, if he continues this through the season, that he could, make the England Euro side.
Definitely, and I think there's also a bit of a versatility around him. Like when Jota was in the team, certainly for the first few games, Klopp was playing a 4-2-3-1 quite a bit. It does seem like Curtis Jones can almost slip into that number 10 role in that 4-2-3-1 as well, just judging by his particular set of attributes.
No, definitely. Look, the hardest thing is when you have a player who's playing, say, as an 8 or a 10, they have to be creative. They have to be able to, pick a pass. They have to be able to do something special almost, because that's what that player's there for. Usually they're the most creative player in the team. And it's just, he has that ability. He showed it time and time again. And even then, if you look at the goals he has scored for Liverpool, he does manage to score goals as well. And if you can get a midfielder who's going to, turn out, I would say 10 goals a season, that is huge. And, he has scored some big goals and he's getting himself there. So I think Jurgen's got a bright player on his hands.
How do you see the next little while going, David, in terms of this title race? You've mentioned there that Liverpool will look to get to the FA Cup weekend and hopefully maybe batten down the hatches a little bit, give a few new players a bit of game time, give a few players a bit of rest. Are they going to be further clear come that weekend?
For me, like the comparison in, playing the first half performance last night for Liverpool, and then you look at the Fulham one. I think the Fulham one was really a wake-up call from, like, as in, like, you saw some of the players after in their interviews, they said they weren't at it. And I think it was kind of a wake-up call that, come on, like, I think the success that they've had in the Premier League and certainly the Champions League the year before, this team is really hungry for success and they want to win multiple Premier Leagues and they're chasing everything. So you can just see them, keep going whenever they play a game. You'll obviously hear them say in their interviews that the next game is the most important game. So I just expect them to keep, turning out results, keep getting wins. And then it's just basically up to the other side, whether it be Tottenham, Leicester, Southampton, Chelsea, Man City, of course, aren't doing very well. But it's up to them then to catch them. And I just think Liverpool are going to keep winning. It's up to the rest of them. Are they going to be able to mount a challenge to them? I think it's more a case of that. Are those teams going to be able to keep up with Liverpool?
And their hopes for the next Anfield game will be in the hands of Big Sam. He's back in the Premier League. He'll be taking West Brom to Anfield. From your own experience, what is it like playing against the Sam Allardyce team?
Look, Big Sam is renowned for the football he plays. People kind of say it's boring, but Sam Allardyce knows how to get results. He's a veteran in the Premier League. He's been around a long time. He's never been relegated. So obviously they always set up to play those long balls, even if there's almost, if a ball goes along to one of your strikers and there's a foul and the centre half has it, they put the ball down the halfway line, they send men up and they say, right, we're just going to lump it long into your box. It's almost, he turns it, in my opinion, he almost turns it into like a rugby game where he plays the field and plays areas kind of. They just want the ball as far away from their goal as possible. And of course, every team that he has is a well-drilled, organised back four that don't manage to, concede many goals. So you can imagine him going into West Brom and just kind of like really making them solid that they don't concede as many goals. Obviously, I know that they've been playing kind of the three at the back and whatever. So it'll be interesting to see does he switch from that, because he's obviously more renowned kind of 4-4-2 kind of fella. So it'll be interesting to see how he lines them up. But you're looking at it from the outside. It's kind of, for Bilic to get sacked after the result against Man City makes you think that they must have had that decision made before that game, expecting to get beat, and then he kind of gets a result. So it's the cruel world of professional football that, Bilic does get a result, but then Big Sam comes in.
Yeah, and Bilic apparently learned that he was getting sacked in the papers that morning, so it is pretty cruel. David, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
It's David Meyler there giving us some thoughts pre-Christmas. We'll definitely have him on before Christmas, so that's why we're not saying Happy Christmas. Or did we just miss our chance to say Happy Christmas?
You have ho 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 over your shoulder, so I'm sure he got the message. Your other shoulder.
It's the elf on the shelf on that side. Right, it's 8:01 here on OTB AM. Stream Manchester United against Leeds this Sunday on the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Search Now TV Sports to find out more. We have plenty more coming for you. We've got Kieran Donaghy, we've got Louise Galvin, and we're going to be looking back at just how good Mayo were when they last won an All-Ireland. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the number. OTBM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We're back with Kieran Donaghy.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist?
Ferguson has a knack for seeing maverick and, kind of creative genius and sort of letting it flow.
Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists. The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
I think, to be fair, in Declan's, the sport probably worked out for us a lot better than the education did, if we're being honest.
You can't yourself. I don't think that was the teacher's problem somehow, Alan.
No, but you're right, Ma'am. It was like, obviously Plunkett's has been fantastic for us, but I think going to school in St. Declan's, and at that particular period in time, there was such a heavy focus on sport, but obviously for us football, or Gaelic football, and it was a step up from club level, a little step down from county level. But as we were 15, 16 years of age, 17, we were playing against the cream of the crop in Dublin, and then in a couple of Leinster competitions when we were lucky to qualify as well. So that gave us a great, like for me, secondary school, for anyone playing Gaelic football or any sport, it's a very important part of the pathway, and we were very lucky in Declan's that we had teachers of the calibre like Brian Avery, Senan Connell and John Caffrey that certainly showed us the way there.
Yeah, we also had, but the other teachers accommodated you being out of class. The principal accommodated you, with regards going away to matches and things like that. So, I mean, it's for kids to succeed in sport or in any other any academic line or anything like that. You have to have the whole school body, and I think they really were very supportive of you.
Yeah.
They might have let you away with a few things as well that you shouldn't have got away with, because you played football.
We got away with murder, but that was all part of it.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid, is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See MitsubishiMotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
4 minutes past 8 on OTB AM. It's Ger Gilroy and Owen Sheehan with you all the way through until 10 this morning. Now, you'll have heard a clip there from episode 5 of the Bernard Brogan podcast in the ad break. A very special final episode of Series 1 with the Brogan family, brought to you by Super Value, proud sponsors of the 2020 All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. The hashtag for that is support where you're from. Let's get to GA. Kieran Donaghy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger. How are you?
How does the orange of Armagh sit on your shoulders?
I don't know yet. I haven't been up there. Going up over the weekend now, so looking forward to it.
To get fitted for the team tracksuit. What's your job going to be?
Just a coaching role in with Kieran. So look, I suppose I was lucky enough to play with Kieran in the international rules in 2006. He coached me in 2011 down in Australia, and I was very impressed with the way he went about it, along with Anthony Tohill. And we've been kind of kept in touch. He's got a good Kerry woman by his side, so he's down in Kerry quite a bit in Ballymac, just out the road from me here. So it's something that we've probably talked about for a bit, and that he's hopped off me before. So it was. I've been doing quite a bit of work, I suppose. Jar, look, like when I'm in with G Jar above in the studio there, people were saying, "Gee, how are you in the studio? It's 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning." Obviously doing quite a bit of work with PSD in Dublin. We've a big pitch starting in Enniskillen in about 2 months' time, and there's another project that we've won up there as well coming up. So thankfully I don't have to go over to the UK anymore. We've got two full-time guys over there now. So I was doing that as well for probably a year. So that's been taken out of my hands, thanks to the God. And it's Ireland and Northern Ireland I have to look after in my role as sales director. So up there quite a bit, and it will allow me to use my work schedule and the Armagh coaching schedule in kind of similar fashions like I would have done with G over the last 2 years. Been in studio early in the morning. Staying in the hotel the odd night is lonely enough, and this will give
you something to
do for me.
Yeah, it'll keep you busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you have to hide the fact that you've got Tyrone connections?
Yeah, possibly. The Tyrone side it will be maybe, but look, I just didn't. There was no call off of Brian Dooher and Mr. Donnelly. So no, I'm only messing. Look, they've got their exciting new project going over there after such a long tenure with Mickey Hart. So I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. And Kieran, in fairness to him, he talked to me at the end of last year a small bit, and then Kieran Donaghy, we met a few times over the last few weeks and months, and I watched this Armagh side above when I was with Sky Sports on above against Mayo and Castlebar. They lost by a point in the qualifiers last year, and I was extremely impressed with how they were doing and the young talent they had. And obviously, Kieran's been there 6 years now. He did 6 years with Kildare, so there's great continuity in the setup. The backroom team he already has in place is outstanding. So just hoping I can go up and just add maybe just a little different voice and a different viewpoint, and probably a fresh set of eyes. We're probably big on Kieran's hit list as well. So it's a very exciting. Coaching is obviously something I'm passionate about and trying to learn, and very excited to get the chance to learn off someone like Kieran McGeeney, who has came straight out of his playing days and went straight into management, and took that Kildare side to the verge of an All-Ireland final, and has done great work with Armagh. They've been climbing through the ranks. They'll have a serious task this year in Division 1. Ulster's obviously always very competitive, but there's a very good young talented bunch of players there, and seeing what I can add to the equation there.
You obviously just feel that this is the right time, that you're ready for this, because I know from talking to you over the last number of years that coaching and management is definitely part of your future. You were just building the skill set over the last while. You've worked with Tralee IT. Will that continue? Will you be able to do that, or is Armagh the only thing you'll have time for?
So yeah, interesting enough, we kind of had our meeting with Tralee IT a number of weeks ago, and we were certainly building up to a Sigerson run, but we don't know. We're kind of in limbo really with third level colleges and where it's at. It's kind of disappointing really. They're kind of been left on the back foot, not knowing what's going on. So we were full sure it was going ahead. Well, not full sure it was going ahead. We thought it was going ahead, and we met as a group there about maybe 3 weeks ago, and we were planning to start training, and then we got an email that day saying that we're not allowed to train. So look, just don't know where that lies yet.
Right.
Ger, but yeah, look, it's something I had a really enjoyable year inside with Micheál O'Donoghue and the Galway boys, and learned a huge amount off of that setup, and worked closely with the lads as well, and still have a very good bond with a lot of those guys. So it's being in a group is I suppose it's where I'm happiest. Even in work with the team we have now, in work is trying to lead by example. There, there's a really good bunch there, Ger, from talking to Kieran and Young, and so just hoping maybe just to bring a bit through experience, and see if I can just add maybe 0.5% to the group on what they have done over the last number of years, which is climbing through the divisions and own Division 1. So it's going to be really, I suppose, exciting for me to get in a huge challenge, and I enjoy a challenge, as you well know. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, look, exciting times. We wish you the very best with it. Let's talk about the game at the weekend.
Yeah.
If you're Mayo, what case are you making in the dressing room about how you're going to beat this team? Like, what are the things? Is it an emotional case first off, to make sure that everybody believes what you're doing, or is it purely on a technical level we can get at this Dublin team in various ways, and that gives the confidence for the emotional response?
Look, emotionally, they're going to have to be at the right pitch. They're going to have to be right on the edge against this Dublin team, because this Dublin team live on the edge and they do it really well. So you have to be at that peak, kind of almost to the point of fighting without fighting, but that type of controlled aggression about what you are. You absolutely have to have huge belief, and I'm sure James Horn and the management team and the backroom team, sports psychologists, etc., will have been working on that, on the belief of the team. They are going really well. They know they do perform well. They've got a lot of young fellas who probably have no scar tissue of Dublin and losing finals, etc. So for them fellas, it's kind of like a fresh start, and that could be good. It could be a bit of a relief for Mayo that it isn't the same team, kind of, we'll say, as last year, which had been there so many times against this Dublin team and so close, and the hard luck stories and the own goals, and no matter what seemed to happen, they couldn't get over the line. So I would say that freshness from those 6 or 7 new guys in the team, they'll be bursting just to have a go. But look, as everybody else is against Dublin, they have to realise that this is a different machine to anything they'll have played so far this year. You have to be pretty flawless. You can't make silly mistakes. You can't have bad turnovers. You have to play well. You have to execute. You may get a goal chance or two, and you have to really take those goal chances. That's kind of that's key. If you're going to beat this Dublin team, you need to get goals, and they have got really good Dublin in that department of team defence and not allowing goals to go in. So, there's an awful lot needs to go well for you. Kind of like what happened Kerry in the first All-Ireland final last year. Kerry played well. They got Dublin got a man sent off inside 20 minutes. And a lot went well for Kerry. They stuck in there. They got a bit of momentum later on. They took the lead, and this Dublin team, with their 5-in-a-row dream kind of falling around them, were able to kind of conjure up through tactics and through smarts and through discipline. They were able to conjure up a late run to get the game back level and even have a chance to win it. So they're an incredible bunch. So to beat them, Mayo will need a lot of the facets of their game to go really well.
Let's touch on the goal scoring that you mentioned there and the people who might get those goals. I think almost there's been so much written and said about what Cillian O'Connor and Aidan O'Shea are doing off the ball at the moment in terms of their turnover ability and how good they are in terms of their tackling and all that. But Cillian O'Connor, as a scorer this year, clearly seems to have gone to a different level statistically, but have you seen him go to a different level as a footballer? Is he doing anything different this year that is leading him to getting these massive scores in games?
Look, statistically, he's the highest scorer and has been since he was since last year when he was a 27-year-old, which is frightening. He's an absolute sniper. He's a technically gifted player. He plays on the edge. Knows what he's about. Knows where he's trying to get to. And look, 4-9 the last 21 points in a game is, I don't know. Look, I've never heard of it. I haven't heard of it in an under 14 Fela game. Never mind an All-Ireland semi-final. So it's an amazing note. Look, I've looked back in the game, obviously getting ready for today and getting ready for Sky the weekend. And we talked about this, myself, Jim McGuinness and Peter Canavan on our con call the other night, and it was amazing. And it was an All-Ireland semi-final for Cillian O'Connor that absolutely everything he touched was magic. Every time the ball fell in his lap, he was in the right place. Whenever he went the extra mile working for his team, he got the break. On the crossfield ball from Casey, he stepped in, he just touched it and went into the net. He was at the back post for one of the goals. He got a lovely slip pass off of Aidan O'Shea going through, and he banged in the goal early in the game. And then his last goal is that's his last goal is special. And I don't know, because of the stage of the game, did it get enough, attention? But his last goal is absolutely unbelievable. Slips in back door, gets a ball in over the top. Yes, his man slips, but he turns around and Comerford's out in him, and he's a massive man in goals for tip. And Cillian looks like he's going to the opposite side and pulls it across into the opposite side of the net that you would think a guy would go to, with everything. His body shape, his body position was all going one way, and then a little left-footed shot kind of in over his right shoulder. Aidan is doing really well at full forward. Look, in an ideal world, I'd love to see him in there, and Mayo go with him and be direct, and him not having to come out as much. But in the law of averages, with the way the game will go and with how strong Dublin are around the middle, he'll be needed out there at times. So I would say that he was very good against Cavan, coming out, winning ball in front of him a number of times in the D. Almost like a kind of a post player in basketball will do when Dublin have that kind of blanket in front of you. If Aidan O'Shea, when it's slowed down and there's bodies everywhere, if he can kind of go into kind of a post role in basketball where he gets out into the D, when the ball's been rotated, he gets out and guys hit him into the chest with a hand pass if he gets out in front of his man. Because once he gets out in front, there's no getting around him. He's too physically strong for that. So if he can kind of get a shove off, kind of a la Aussie rules, kind of leading a lead run kind of type thing into the D, and if one of those guys that when the ball's going to cross the 45 on a rotation can hit him and get runners off him, you saw, as I said earlier on, with the goal for Cillian O'Connor, you saw with how good his slip was for him. So look, the two of them have been leading lights for Mayo for a number of years, and it would be fitting if they could get this one over the line for their county. But the pocket rocket is Tommy Goals in the corner, and he's called that for a reason. And geez, they'd be happy in Mayo if he got one the weekend. He's moving really well as well. He's ballsy. He's dynamic. He's quick. He got a ball down the line off of Stephen Cohen against Tipperary into the Canal end, over by the Cusick and Canal corner. And he got a ball, and the minute it hit his chest, he just dropped the shoulder and he was just gone past in the Tipperary defender. And I think it was Bill Maher kind of got it and just spun him and went straight in along the end line, and Bill Maher to kind of drag him down, and they got a 21-yard free. But he's been really dynamic as well. So their inside line is good, and that has to have obviously a big game the next day, as long with everybody else out the field doing their role to get enough supply into them.
That is an interesting point, and I think that actually when you talk about Aidan O'Shea there and what he can bring in terms of getting the ball into his chest, the evidence is suggesting that Mayo, the more direct they go, the better chance they have of causing Dublin real problems. It's obviously a bit of a risky approach, but if we get into the Dublin defence and how they actually approach things, the kick pass from the middle third of the pitch direct into your 2 or 3 man full forward line could be Mayo's best weapon here. Dublin do
a great job of really not allowing themselves to be that exposed. One, they don't turn over the ball that much because they don't take it into contact. And two, they've kind of really good pressure around the middle of the field when fellas are trying to get their head up, and their weak side or their extra man, as they'll normally have, which I don't think they'll have too much against Mayo. I think it'll be the weak side defender that will be probably playing more of a sweeping role on. But their defensive setup and shape doesn't really allow them to be too exposed with an inside forward line. What I possibly would do if I was Mayo is maybe bring Tommy and Killian out to the kind of D when they're back defending at times. Just to allow that out ball to Tommy or Killian to be faster and quicker, that they're not in the full forward line waiting for the guys. The gap is very big. When I used to be in full forward, I used to always send one of the fellas out next to me if the gap was big, to get out to the top of the D, even on the 45, to try and be that out ball for when your guys turn it over and get the ball back. So they don't want to kind of get caught with a scenario where there's three guys. They don't want to get caught and that kind of scenario where there's three of them. I don't know, can you see that? Yeah. But where there's three of them in this kind of a scenario where you've Cillian O'Connor, Tommy Conroy, and obviously Aidan O'Shea, and everybody else is back kind of defending Dublin, as most teams have to do now because Dublin are so dynamic. So you have so many teams back, and if you get the ball back there, it's an awful long way to your full forward, whereas I'd nearly like to see Aidan inside here and see Cillian and Tommy Conroy playing that kind of a role where they can crisscross, and maybe when the boys get the ball out, that there's that kick pass. If you can get that kick pass off, now what happens in here is more dangerous. What Dublin are really good at is playing enough in front here where they take out that ball an awful lot and make it hard to get in there. So, this access for Mayo, Aidan O'Shea, Cillian and Tommy Conroy, if they're to get that kind of space, and the boys can turn them over. Now, the problem with that as well is actually turning them over, guys. It's Dublin don't do it. They did it once against, they did 3 turnovers in the opposition half against Cavan. And I think one of them was someone tried to play a ball into the corner here, and it got cut out by a Cavan player. And they moved it straight into the middle of the field to James Smith. James Smith was fouled. Cavan had more guys back than that. So they had that kind of a scenario. But what they left with inside here was Martin O'Reilly, the wing forward. He was one-on-one with Johnny Cooper. They got a foul. Dublin are very good at the tactical foul in the middle of the field. If they do feel they're exposed, the very rare times they do turn over, you'll notice that they'll foul before the ball gets a chance to be punished almost after a turnover. They'll do that foul where they'll get a good hard tackle in, let you know about it. But you'll have to get up, and all the time then it's allowing Dublin to filter bodies back. But in this instance, when he was fouled, he kind of jumped out of the way of the foul and got away and just played a diagonal ball in here. And Martin O'Reilly won it in over the top. Johnny Cooper fouled him. And if they can try and work that kind of one-on-one, it would be obviously something that they should try and do as much as they can, because it's this Dublin team and how they defend is quite brilliant in what they do. So they'll have to get an awful lot to work right for them to play well against this Dublin defence.
That element could be something that Mayo are going to target, as you mentioned there. That Johnny Cooper moment was an interesting one. He was lucky to not get punished on that particular occasion.
And no black card and no kind of yellow cards for the persistent fouling that other teams get. That's the benefit of being champions, is it? Or is it just that other teams need to bitch and whine and piss about it?
No, Jared, they're just really smart about how they do it. They're all so tight out in this middle side that if they're doing, Jim McGuinness has been commenting on this kind of counter press, kind of like the soccer style do. So if Mayo have lots of bodies back, you have maybe a Johnny Cooper, Owen Murchan and maybe Robbie McDade out here, and they're the kind of swing guys when the ball doesn't like what's happening out here and they want to rotate it out. They rotate it out and Johnny Cooper will take it over and he'll pass, and all the guys will be doing all the excellent movement. They'll be doing the back doors close to goal. They're really good at that. But when that ball is being rotated, if they lose the ball, Dublin, if they lose it somewhere here, these guys just don't sprint back. They almost do what the soccer teams, Barcelona and Liverpool, are doing. they're getting straight up and they're picking the closest man who's trying to get out to them. They're picking them up, and then they're going to kind of like a real tight, aggressive man-to-man out here. And the only place they won't be aggressive is where a guy can get beat. So, you know, if that's Dean Rock and the full back is the ball, he'll stay that kind of metre and a half off him where he's in his eye line, but he's not going to get beat and allow this guy out. Because once you get a guy out in the modern game now, teams are so good at using the extra man. So they won't get beaten up here. They'll stay very tight, connected. Or like if there's a thing we do in basketball, if you're kind of one pass away. So if you're playing in a basketball court, if you're 2 passes away, you should be in held position. So what I would say, 2 passes away is maybe this guy, when the ball's over here, he's 2 passes away. So what he can do for Dublin is he can get into held position. But all these guys are 1 hand pass away. So they're all really good. Dublin are really good at getting tight on all that and not allowing the out ball, we'll say. And what they do then is they try and get you over here to where they push you up the sideline. They're very good at getting their body position. If this is the guy coming out and I jump to here, it's giving this guy a huge option to come inside me. Whereas if what Dublin do is actually get up here and actually encourage this guy to start going down the line. And once he starts going down the line, then they're the best around at using the sideline as an extra defender.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it hard. And what they're very good at also is realising when a guy is out of the play. So Dean Rock is here on the full back, kind of out of the play. He'll almost sneak in behind when he can. And then they get this double team that we're seeing so much of them on the sideline. So, look, they're so good at what they're doing. Defensively wise, it's kind of hard to break them down and hard to get scores off them. But look, that's just the beauty of how well oiled they are, and that's why they're so oppressive when they're seeing them. But that's the big thing that Jim McGuinness has noticed, that most teams, if they turned it over here, the initial reaction would be get safety back, get a guy or two back there to take away. You leave extra bodies. Now these guys can pass out very easily. Teams can transfer the ball quickly. But that's why we don't see Dublin exposed in the full back line really at times, is because they're so good at pushing you out the sideline and slowing you down and not letting themselves get up there.
It does sound like we're in one of those scenarios that we had with Mourinho and Klopp, where Klopp has had his 2 million days and Mourinho's only had the wet week to work with it. And I know James Horan has been there before, but this isn't year 6 or year 7 of this group of players. It's a bunch of new players came in after last year was trying to wrestle one last tour from the old team. And it has the bang of a new team. So can they get to a level where their proficiency and their understanding of the Dublin game plan is so great and sophisticated, and their own game plan is so great and sophisticated that it causes Dublin threats that they haven't seen before?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's amazing actually what's happened with Dublin this year is that they've just been so seamless from the old management into the new management that it does. If you told us that Jim Gavin was actually managing this team and like instead of Dessie Farrell, you would probably believe anybody who said that, because it does look very similar. There have been a few tweaks here and there, a few personnel changes, but it looks like the same management team, and the standards are just as high, and in many areas they've actually gone to a higher level again. So, like, I mean, this is the sort of fixture that can actually wind the team up so much to the point of obsession, I'd imagine. And Mayo would have thought about this for so long, and I'm sure coming up against Dublin last year was something that would have preoccupied them all year long, and then unfortunately they come up quite short in the end. But this is a better chance. This is as good a chance as Mayo will have because of the conditions around it, because of the lack of a crowd, because of the rest that they've had beforehand, because of the players in their peak, because of the new players, that beautiful naivety, the untarnished level of their relationship with a lot of these players between themselves and Dublin. A lot of these players haven't played against Dublin, haven't been beaten against Dublin. So this is a real opportunity on a mental level for them. I think, Kieran, you're back with us there. Kieran, to go back to the point you're making about the Dublin defence there, just in terms of how the Dubs actually approach Mayo, say, breaking out of their own defence. I know you were getting into it there. It's amazing how they actually just step off the Mayo player running through. Almost they won't commit to the tackle in certain areas and try and force them out wide. And that's where you'll see your Johnny Cooper try and step up and actually make the turnover.
Yeah, the beauty about them from looking at them, and especially I've seen them live, been lucky enough to see them live with Sky 3 times this year. How they go about their defensive duties is of great understanding. They all know what they're supposed to do. There's no fella going on a solo run trying to get a turnover and just running after some fella and blindly kind of going in and tackling them. Everything is scanned. Everything is, where am I in the pitch? Who's around me? All that is checking through their brain when they realise somebody is coming at them. So
can I ask you a question on that, right?
Yeah.
How much of that is coaching and how much of that is the individual players being excellent? Because it feels like that's the type of stuff that you could drill into most good footballers and athletes to get to a level where at least you're beginning to compete with them. But you watch most inter-county teams and they're not doing this stuff.
Look, I think we all thought when Mark Ingle went in there and that it was more kind of offensive stuff that he was working on, but listening to one or two interviews he did, it was mostly defensive stuff he was doing, and I'd say a lot of it was this the scoring zone. You know, that arc around the D, we'll say, is obviously where the statistical the stats will tell you that your shot percentage from there is quite high, and obviously anything outside the 45, the shot percentage starts dropping down. So what Dublin do really well is they really do a good job of protecting this D. They do it better than probably anybody, and their scramble defence is outstanding. So you may have seen in the Meath game, they broke through a few times. They broke through a few times on them, Meath, and when they were doing that, they were quite dangerous. But they never got a goal, and they never got near a goal. Killian O'Sullivan, I think, went through here once at one time. He bore straight down in goals, but what they do is they realise that there's trouble straight away. And the Johnny Coopers and all these, they've no problem in leaving their men and getting straight to the danger zone. And when he came through here with the ball, Cluxton did brilliant. He came rushing out of them, kind of almost startles them. He did it 3 times against Meath. But what he's doing that for is he comes out so fast that the player is often kind of spooked by it and maybe tries to change direction, which allows the guys that are coming back in to the danger zone, allows them time to get tackles in and get pressure in. And often you'll see them throw it out. They'll throw it out to him or throw it out to him, and they may have a shot at goal. So they did that really well against Meath, and that kind of danger, that stopping the danger would be like in basketball. If someone comes down if you're marking everybody out in the 3-point line and somebody gets beat and gets into the lane, you'll see the basketball defense will collapse, and it'll help around the key area, which is the very high percentage scoring area in basketball. And they'll try and get to there, force you to kind of kick it out and then scramble defence. So it doesn't matter who's on who. Meath's first point in the Leinster final this year, they raced through on goal. Cluxton came flying out, spooked the attacker. He was jinking left, jinking right. Next thing, there was a swarm of 6 or 7 Dublin fellas, and he ended up throwing it out to Brian Menton, and he had 2 guys diving on his boot to kick, and I think he pulled it wide. Actually, it was before their first score. He pulled it wide, and that was in the first minute. And you were kind of going, "Geez, maybe Meath might open them up today." And it happened again about 15 minutes later, and that was the end of it. Then that was their 2 goal chances. They never got a shot at goal off. Yeah. Dublin were out on the boot quicker. Cluxton was out on the boot. The defenders were swarming back in behind them. So it's fine to say, Ger, that like coaching would have a huge part to do with that, and constantly having guys to know where they are through video work, through stuff on the pitch, not allowing yourself to be beaten in poor areas of the pitch, and in good areas of the pitch to know what you're about. And they're so good at knowing when to double the ball. They're so good at knowing when to leave their man. They're very unselfish defensive team, I would call it. They don't really care who scores once you don't score that much, and that's the beauty of them. And their scoring percentage that they allow the opposition to have has come down over the last number of years. So they're getting better, which isn't the good news for people in Leinster like yourself, no. Ger. They're getting better, and it's because of this isn't something that's been coached just by Dessie Farrell. This is it's an evolving game plan that they've had both offensively and defensively over the last number of years. And that's why maybe, Owen, when you're saying, you could look at it and you could see it, Jim Gavin is doing it. Dessie Farrell's a very shrewd operator and a very good manager by all accounts. So you know, he would have come in and tried to add a few bits to this. But, you know, them players are extremely intelligent bunch and highly motivated to keep the foot on everybody's throats, and are working constantly on ways that if we don't concede at the back, if you just put yourself in the Dublin dressing room and you're a centre back or full back, you're saying, if we don't concede here, lads, you know, our boys will score enough up front. So that's a huge advantage to have going into a game.
Just very quickly, because we are out of time, Kieran, we should just touch on some of the matchups this weekend. So we're going to do these in rapid fire style. The 5 most important matchups this weekend. First of all, who's going to mark Brian Fenton?
Look, I you know, obviously it'll probably have to be Matty Ruan. I think he's athletic, he's strong, he's powerful. He'll have to go toe to toe on with the Raheny powerhouse, and must try to attack him too to keep him honest. But that'll be a fascinating one to watch.
Con O'Callaghan?
He's a dilemma for me, because I think at centre forward, Cohen will pick him up. He went to college with him, played Sigerson with him for a few years, will know a lot of his traits. My problem is when Con, I think Con is going to be deployed a lot more the weekend in at 14. And I think that's where the problems come for Mayo, because Cohen is more comfortable at centre back. He'd go toe to toe with Kilkenny, but you know that's a slight dilemma for me. Cohen will pick him up early if he goes to centre forward, but I have a small bit of a fear of when he goes inside.
Kieran Kilkenny, then who's going to mark him?
I think probably. I think Lee Keegan maybe. I think Keegan would like, unless Keegan wants another shot at Con after what happened last year. You know, Leroy is a highly competitive guy, so he could be looking at that matchup and saying, I want another go off of this guy. Or he could be happy to try and stop Kilkenny, who's been, you know, one of Dublin's best players, and probably, you know, in line for Player of the Year with how consistent he has and how brilliant he's been at a very new role for him, being inside much more often than that.
On the other side then, who's going to pick up Cillian O'Connor, do you think?
I think Fitzsimons will pick up Aidan O'Shea, and I think Cillian O'Connor will be picked up by Davy Byrne, and I think they'll probably put Owen Murchan over on Tommy Conroy. I think Davy will go try and be physical with Cillian. You know, there's a good Mick Fitzsimons is the most experienced guy back there. He's 7 All-Ireland medals. He's going for 8. He'll be back there, you know, trying to put the shackles on Aidan. And yeah, there's some fascinating battles out there the last day. Obviously, Mayo have to try and come out on top. If Mayo could come out on top of 3 or 4 of those battles, they'd have a good chance of being in a position to win this late on. But the fear is you know, that Fenton, Kilkenny, and Con could all you know, have big games, and if they have big games, then Mayo will be in trouble. So. Look, I think as a guy going into an All-Ireland final, you have to kind of look at your guy and say, look, not today. I'm going to have to win my own battle and just hope the boys around me can win that, but you can't concentrate on everybody else.
And who's going to win? By how many?
The neutral and the human side of me is obviously would love to see this Mayo team win. And if they get a day like last year where Kerry performed really well in the first half and the second half, and their players play really well, they'll absolutely have a chance in this, because they're physically as well prepared as them. Their kick-outs would be a slight worry for me. The goal chances they gave up against Tipperary would be a slight worry for me. So look, the bookies aren't often wrong. I think they have it at 5 or 6 points, and it may be that. So look, I picked Dublin at the start of the year, so I'll stay with them. But obviously, we'd all like to see Mayo finally end the jinx and just get their hands on it for this bunch of players and what they've put into the game. And they are respected as a really good team, you know. And I think they could if they could get this All Ireland over the line. They can consider themselves maybe more than a great team.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's exactly it. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks a million. Congratulations on the new gig again. Cheers.
All right, boys. Take it easy.
Kieran Donaghy giving us some thoughts there ahead of the All-Ireland football final. John Duggan is with us. John, good morning to you.
Kieran Owen, how are we doing?
Your column is All-Ireland finals must be competitive for hope to survive. You're a dub. Like, are you one of the dubs who are curiously hoping for a close game so that the rest of us aren't going, come on, split them. Split.
No, I'm of the view that I'm completely sated by the 5 in a row as a Dub supporter, who's somebody who's I can actually have a hat where I'm working, and I can have a hat when I'm a Dub supporter. It's possible to have those 2 hats. But I suppose the feeling I have, and what I was writing about, is that this is Mayo's 10th All-Ireland since 1989. They've lost every one. But there was a couple of lads in front of me at the 17 final, and there was a real sense that day that Mayo were going to do this when Lee Keegan put the ball in the back of the net. Probably the best final I've ever seen. And at the end, one of them was just weeping uncontrollably. And I just hope that man, wherever he is on Saturday, has got the hope back, has got the belief back that they can do it. And because I think you can have the devil's bargain of defeat and painful defeat if the hope is still there. But if Dublin are winning 10 in a row, and if the central funding issue is, and all the other complex issues around Dublin are leading to a situation where it's not competitive, you don't have that sense of nerve. Like, I was asking Owen there off air how nervous he was before the two matches last year, and he says he was really nervous. I was completely on the edge of my seat in that drawn game, and it was like the relief afterwards, like Johnny Cooper being sent off and the kind of claustrophobic nature of that. It was a brilliant experience as a supporter. And then even the second game, because you knew history was on the cards, and even those last few moments when the Hill was in full voice before they won it. So, you know yourself, Gerald Kildare, like, it's the hope that I was, and the reason why I kind of referenced that was...
Is there even hope until there?
Shut up.
There's always hope. But I was driving through Tourmakeedy on the way back from Connemara earlier this year, and it's a very small village in the Gaeltacht area of Mayo. And there was this beautiful clubhouse and GA pitch, and they've commercial games there and everything like that. And it's where Robert Shaw, who was in Jaws and The Sting, retired to Tourmakeedy in Mayo in the 70s. And you're thinking, this is like the real bedrock and soul of Community Ireland. And these people want to dream that the Lee McCarthy Cup or the Sam Maguire Cup can visit their club, as it has in Limerick, because Limerick fans for so many decades and years would travel in hope, but not in expectation with all the disappointments.
Yeah, so we need a little bit of that. The sport needs a close game.
The sport needs a competitive game. We need competitive finals all the time. Waterford people had a sense last weekend that this would be competitive for them. I wouldn't begrudge one iota Mayo winning this All-Ireland. They'd be great for the game. They'd be great for the nation if they won it after 69 years. It'd be just brilliant for the sport.
See, I think if you hadn't won 5 in a row, though, you would be...
Yeah.
That's the thing. The stated point is...
That's it. Yeah.
Like, that's not a great scenario for any sport to be in where the...
No.
You know, and I would say a lot of those fans are like, oh, great, we get to go to the All-Ireland final and we get to plan when the cup is going to come to our school. And, you know, it's like just a matter of course now that this happens. And for the rest of the country, that's kind of like, we're delighted for you, yay, you know?
Well, that's why there's an angst, because the game is so deep-rooted, and that's why there is an angst. And not against the Dublin players or the brilliant way they play the game, but against the system and against the fact that this might not be competitive. And that's why we do need competitive finals in both sports. And maybe we need to change. We obviously need to change the structure, and that's a debate for another day. But I just hope it is closed on Saturday.
All right. John, what else is going on?
Well, obviously last night was the big thing, wasn't it? Liverpool against Spurs. An early taster of where maybe the title might be going, and the statement was very much made by Liverpool. A 2-1 win at Anfield, with Mo Salah scoring the first goal, Heung-min Son equalising, and then Roberto Firmino with a header to make it 2-1 in the last minute of normal time. Liverpool, 75% possession, 11 shots on target to Tottenham's 2, and Jurgen Klopp full of praise for Firmino afterwards.
I just hope that he never doubts himself. I mean, actually, in training, it doesn't look like, but there's so much talk about. It always feels like people are surprised. Oh, Bobby scored. So he scores goals, important ones for us. And it's not about, but for us, it's not so much about who scores them. But because for us, it's only important the ball is in the back of the net. That's the only thing what's important for us. And the way how we get there are a few obvious things like passing the ball, crossing the ball, and finishing it off. But making the runs to open up the gaps for all these things, people don't see that.
Jose Mourinho, as he would, felt that the better team lost.
I think even a draw would let us not with the best taste, because we had them there to win it. And was not just about the big chances, was the moment of the big chances. And the moment was when they were in trouble, in their worst moment, and we had it there to kill it. But we miss it.
Fascinating game, lads. I don't know what you thought, but I thought it was a really interesting tactical battle. But Tottenham will not be winning any titles this season, in my view, because they don't dictate enough regarding the terms of the play. You have to get everything right to win under Jose at that level. against an elite team, against like Liverpool at Anfield, and that's why I think they lost last night.
All right, John, good stuff. We'll leave it there. Thanks a million.
Cheers.
John Duggan giving us some thoughts there on the All-Ireland football final. You can read his column on the OTB Sports app. You can get it for free in the App Store, either of the App Stores. A reminder, of course, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. At 8:44, let's turn our attention to the women's final, which is on this weekend as well. And I'm delighted to say Louise Galvin is here with us. Louise, is the debate raging about splitting the Dublin women's team as much as it is about splitting the men's team?
I don't think so. I know they're going for 3 in a row, but they're coming up against Cork, who they well know had a period of dominance over them. They lost 3 finals before then. So maybe if we start to look at another few years. But at the moment, I don't think that debate is there as much for the Dublin ladies, although they are obviously a very impressive squad.
What is the gap between them and everybody else? Is this legitimately a really realistic opportunity for Cork to knock them off this weekend?
Yeah, it's funny. Dublin are coming in as favourites. They're obviously going for their 4 in a row. But there's plenty of opportunity for Cork this weekend. And I think sometimes when you're analysing a game, that's what you're looking for, is opportunity for the underdog. And I think there's plenty of that there for Cork. Just a few little things like even the semi-final. Obviously, there's a lot of drama with the Cork-Galway game being moved to Croke Park. But they have a nice blend of youth and experience. If those young players to now have played in Croke Park, will be a massive advantage for them coming into this game. They won't have the same kind of nerves and jitters and walking into the pitch, which is obviously quite a large pitch compared to a lot of the other ones around the country. Another aspect that might help them, I think, is the fact that it's pretty much behind closed doors. Obviously, the ladies' final have had growing attendances over the years. We've had over 50k there, but a lot of the time over the last few years, they've been a majority of Dublin fans. And obviously, it's on their back door. It's a little bit of an advantage as well. So I think the fact that there'll be no supporters in will actually suit Cork more, and particularly the fact that they have maybe a good few players there that haven't played in as many finals as the Dublin girls. And I think Cork have a sense of unfinished business. Last year, they weren't in the final the year before, losing semi-final stage to Dublin. The year before that, the final. We're talking about 5 or 6 points in it, but at the same time, in ladies football, that isn't a lot because goals can mean a fair bit, and even the fact that yellow cards are sin bins. Remember that the last time they played in the semi-final, Ciara Sullivan suffered a dubious enough sin bin at a critical time in the second half. So they'll certainly feel like they're not that far away from the Dubs.
Darren O'Sullivan was saying this week that they panicked when Dublin landed big scores in the 2018 game and last year's game. Have you seen enough from them this year to suggest that they've matured a little bit to not panic if Dublin come at them with a big score late in the game?
Yeah, I suppose, Owen, it's hard to see enough of anyone because the league was so long ago and everyone's just coming in with 3 games. But I think even if you compare their form, Cork probably started a bit slow against Kerry in the first half and then used their experience to I suppose, to see that game out. Then they hit the ground running against Cavan, netted 7 times and had a very, very dominant performance against Galway as well in the semi-final. Whereas Dublin have been a little bit more inconsistent in their performances. They had a bit of a dubious goal between them in the end against Donegal, Sinead Ahern goal. Played well in patches against Waterford, and then Armagh certainly put it up to them at times where in that game you would have seen Dublin maybe last year or the year before really pull away. Armagh were able to come back into it. Now Armagh are obviously a very skillful football team, but I just wonder with the Dubs if they haven't seemed to have put the same level of consistency together in their games, and yet they're still winning, which is obviously a good sign. So again, I think that's a positive for Cork coming into it, that they seem to be building nicely up towards the final, whereas the Dubs are a little bit in fits and starts. I also wonder if the Dubs know what their best team is, because we've seen the semi-final, they didn't start Niamh McAvoy, who would have been a guaranteed starter the last few years, a very good footballer. They have Nicole Owens and Siobhan Clean coming back from crucial injuries. So are they going to stake a claim? I know Nicole Owens started the semi-final. And another huge question mark is over Sinead Ahern, their captain. She pulled up a hamstring injury in the first half of that semi-final. We're talking about, 3 weeks. Is it enough for your free taker to recover from a hamstring injury? Obviously, they have a lot of firepower. They have a lot of depth in their squad, but the leadership she brings, particularly to that forward line, she's quite a quiet individual off the field, but she's a massive leader for them. So if she isn't able to play, or if she starts and isn't able to perform, because as a physio, if you don't have a fully functioning hamstring, it's not something you can get by on. That'll be a huge loss to them as well from a leadership point of view, and it'll be a boost for Cork if they see her either hobbling off or not togging out at all. So I'm not sure you'd bring her on. I think you'd have to start her and see how she goes, rather than risk wasting what would be 2 substitutes to bring her on and take her off again if she's not up to it physically, obviously.
That Armagh team are obviously amazingly skillful, as you mentioned. There's some brilliant individual talent, but do they show the playbook at all that Cork could implement this weekend in terms of how you might actually get at Dublin tactically, I guess, rather than just individually?
Yeah, look, geez, Armagh, that was a brilliant game. Really, that was probably one of the most enjoyable football games of the year for me, along with the Munster and Ulster men's football finals. I think they have some brilliant individuals. Obviously, we saw, that goal that Amy Mackin scored, particularly near the end. I'm not sure there's a footballer in the country at the moment that could score that. But what Cork have is probably a bit more of a spread, and they've a really physical inside full forward line. So tactically, I think they have a lot of pace throughout the field. So if they can break the line and get those runners off the shoulder and get in behind the Dubs, particularly if they can turn them over around that middle third and attack quickly before Dublin have a chance to get back and set up their defensive system. They certainly have the inside forwards to put them under pressure. They mightn't have that one standout marquee forward at Amy Mackin, but they might have a bit more actual strength and depth across the forward line. We see Saoirse Noonan's a serious goal-getter. Doireann O'Sullivan would have been plagued by a few injury issues in the past, but she seems to be in a good place physically, so that'll be a boost to them. And Anya Terry-Sullivan as well. They're big, strong, physical girls, and they'll certainly have a height advantage over their Dublin full back line that they're coming up against. So Dublin will want their numbers back. So if Cork can overturn them, particularly around that middle third, which isn't an easy thing to do, and break quickly, particularly with the likes of Melissa Duggan coming off the shoulder from that half-back line, and get ball in early, I think they'll have a slight height and physical advantage over the Dublin full-back line. That might be one way where they can upset them.
Yeah, I think Hannah Looney was saying it's like a blur playing against this Dublin team. Like, we started this conversation by talking about if Dublin are going to pull away from the pack. Is there a case to be made that like Cork, with their experience over the last 20 years or so and knowing how to be uber successful, that it could be a 2-county thing that pulls away from the rest? Like, just reading about their relationship over the last couple of months, like they played a challenge game a couple of months back, and after that challenge game, Mick Bohan turns to Aoife Fitzgerald and points to the players and says, that's success right there, look at those 2 groups. That there is this mutual respect there, and I just wonder if the 2 of them, I guess collectively, are just going to pull away from the rest over the next few years.
Yeah, look, there is that fear. I suppose one thing that might point a little bit against that is that, you've had different All-Ireland finalists with Dublin for the last few years. And even the emergence of a team like Armagh as well this year has been, I suppose, a positive thing for the Ladies' Championship. I mean, if Cork do go on to win, I know down here in Kerry, we did not have a bad performance against them in Tralee. I know we had the luxury of having a game under the belt, but we wouldn't feel that as a county we're that far away from Cork either. So I think what Cork and Dublin have at the moment is they have a nice blend of experience and youth, but also in their 2 management. Like, listening to both of them this week, like, they both talk very much about kind of the holistic sense of looking after the players. It's not all about winning. It's not all about how the players perform on the field. Now, I know I'm part of plenty of teams, and sometimes management put out not exactly what they're saying inside the dressing room, but very much you get the sense that they're not like they're like second fathers to the girls, but that there's a real sense of, first and foremost, particularly in 2020, it was about, everyone's safe coming into training, everyone's safe going home. And then they got the buy-in back from the players. And, I think certainly with Dublin, I know it's not back down to money, but you can compare the investment and the professionalism that the Dublin ladies team get from, and sponsorship, I'm sure, that they get from the likes of AIG. It's probably more than what other counties are get. But much like the men, they're doing the right thing with it. And, coupled with that, the amount of players that they have playing the game, feeding into that system, it certainly would worry you that, for example, like the men, the Dubs don't have that level of competition in Leinster that you could imagine they're going to walk it every year. But from an actual, once you get out of Leinster then, they beat Donegal by 3 points. Armagh came up against them and they mightn't win it all on Sunday. So I don't think Dublin are going to have the same level of dominance. But yes, I do think Dublin and Cork probably have a bit of a they're a step above the rest at the moment.
You're going to see an explosion in playing numbers as well in Dublin as the kind of knock-on impact of having a successful team inspires the next generation, and that generation starts to become mentors to younger kids as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
In fairness, we always see with AIG, I mean, they're very good at when they're promoting, you know, they have their footballer, hurler, camogie, ladies footballer. I think they've done it very well, and success then will breed further success. So I think it is from added investment, but it's from very astute use of that money as well.
Louise, we've obviously been speaking over the last months about the various states of the games and the relationships between the organising bodies. We saw the WGPA and the GPA become one organisation. As usual, it's the players leading and the administrators following. What was your take on all that?
Yeah, I think it's a very positive move. I think players exactly are setting the standard that hopefully the administrator or the governing bodies will follow as well. I have been lucky enough that I've been a member of the Rugby Players Ireland board and one of the first female members, which represents our professional body and now our amateur women's 15s players as well. And I can see firsthand when you have male and female players coming together to that top table what it can mean. And I think that'll happen as well with the WGPA and the GPA. Look, I think the WGPA, they've done a fantastic job, the Ladies Football Association have done a fantastic job in promoting the game, and we've seen that from grassroots all the way up. But the fact, and they're getting a lot of, I suppose abuse might be a strong word of, you know, for example, the Cork Galway debacle about the game being moved and not being televised. I think it's just a case of maybe the performances of the squads and the professionalism of the amateur players is outgrowing maybe the association, and it's nothing against the individuals involved, but like, we need to own our own pitches. That just needs to happen. We can't be relying on handouts from the GA, and whether that comes down to the two associations along with the Camogie Association all joining up, it looks like there's no other real end result other than that'll lead to some level of equity between playing for your county and whether you're male or female.
Before we go, what's going to happen? Who's going to win?
Dubs are coming in as favourites, but I think if you're looking for an upset this weekend, you're going to see it more in the ladies than the men. So I certainly wouldn't rule out Cork. And again, I think these water breaks coming out the third quarter, if they're thereabouts, I think Cork could actually pull this one off. All right, Louise, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers. Thank you. That's Louise Galvin there giving us her thoughts on the All-Ireland football final this weekend. The most likely surprise is in the women's, not the men's.
That's interesting.
2 point spread in the women's, so it's not quite 50-50, but it's not far off it.
Yeah, well, if it's 2 point spread, obviously it's a much bigger chance that the bookies are giving of an upset happening there. It's interesting as well that there's a note of hope there that this isn't going to turn into the men's situation where Dublin pull away from the pack, although you think to yourself that the potential for growth is much bigger than it is in the men's, and the potential for growth in the men's is fairly large itself. So again, it's kind of like Mayo tomorrow, on Saturday, that if Mayo are going to beat Dublin, then they'll need to tap into the youthful exuberance that they have, that they don't know. A lot of these players haven't lost to Dublin. I wonder, does the same thing go in a different way for this Cork team at the weekend as well, where they're thinking to themselves, actually this Dublin team is going to be a lot better in 5 years' time. Beating Dublin is a far bigger possibility now. I know that's a very doomsday thing to say, that Dublin may actually power out of sight, but I wonder if that could happen in the future, and now is Cork's time. Who are you up for in the men's final on Saturday? How can you not be up for Mayo? Well, you hate Mayo, so... I don't hate Mayo. You do. I was actually wondering, of all the people, when Kieran was saying, look, we all feel this way, I was thinking, just need to see Owen's face here. What's his... Is he cringing a little bit, going, no, not me, not me? I really like Mayo. I think as a playing group, they're absolutely... But what do you think of their fans, admirable. I mean, when you're in the white heat of battle in Croke Park and you're sitting beside Mayo fans who inevitably outnumber you 10 to 1 quite often, which is not just a mark of them, it's a mark of Kerry supporters as well. Sometimes things can get a little bit tetchy and things can get a little bit annoying, but no, I genuinely wouldn't begrudge them this year's All-Ireland. It would be absolutely fantastic to see them having to stay indoors and not celebrate it outdoors, basically. Imagine how sickening Nathan Murphy would be. Well, thank God for the pandemic in that case, in that specific case of Nathan Murphy. Like, let everybody else roam free. I think we've moved beyond that point of the potential annoyance of Mayo fans being a factor in our thinking. I
don't think you have. I think you're just saying this on camera, and when we come off camera, you're like, that's what I think here, Owen. Tell the truth. Be yourself. No, you're free.
Genuinely,
this is a safe place.
Genuinely, no. Genuinely, the idea of Dublin dominating for another year is less palatable than Mayo winning in All-Ireland. All things considered, would I prefer Cavan to be All-Ireland champions, Tip to be All-Ireland champions? Yes. Would I prefer, maybe not Cork? Like, see, there's a kind of a small list. Like, I mean, we all have our beefs with the likes of Tyrone and Armagh. They've caused us a lot of pain.
You've no beef with Donegal,
in the past. Donegal, yeah, I would take Donegal as well. Like, I mean, there are a selection of counties that you would prefer to see them win than Mayo. But in this particular tete-a-tete this weekend, the Mayo supporter, I would like to see them happy this weekend. And in fairness, I've softened over the last few years. If you asked me in 2017, I'd be like, let's pile on all the pain on Mayo possible. But that was because I was a sore loser after they beat Kerry, and I'll hold up my hands and say I'll be okay with Mayo winning this weekend. And in fact, I actually want to see them do it.
The pandemic has brought you maturity, is what you're saying.
It has. I'm wise now, and all these old it's more kind of tapping into the fact that I've done a lot of research into 1951 this morning. I don't want to have to repeat this segment again next year. That's the only reason I'm up for Mayo. Actually, no. Hold on a minute. It would actually save me a lot of work if I could repeat the segment next year. So, up the dubs, basically.
And what about the argument that if Mayo win, then this championship is locked in and everybody's, it's fine, we don't need to make any changes, everything is grand.
God. No, like that sort of...
Well, it's going to happen.
That sort of discourse is nonsensical.
You know it's going to happen.
That sort of discourse is absolutely nonsensical. It makes absolutely zero sense that people are seeing a fairy tale happen, or a couple of fairy tales happen, which are elements of chance. And they therefore want to keep the amount of opportunity for those moments of chance happening at a minimum. Because that is what happens unless the competition itself expands back to its regular format next year. That's where you have the most opportunities for shocks, because there are more games, there are more avenues into the quarterfinals. Like, I think the best kind of case of this has been Tipperary over the last 4 years. The way they managed to make the All-Ireland semi-finals in 2016 is a far more hopeful way than the way they made the All-Ireland semi-final this year. And that's just putting it bluntly. They're not going to win a Munster title every second year or every 5 years. They're not going to get into the All-Ireland semi-final every 5 years unless there's a back door, unless they get not a handy draw, but a decent draw for a team like them, a team operating Division 2 or 3. And they managed to get that draw in 2016. They beat Galway in an All-Ireland quarter-final, a beatable team for a team like Tipperary, and they got there. Can you see them actually getting out of Munster every single year to the point where a semi-final becomes regular? No, is the answer to that question. I think those two results, particularly Tipperary, were very 2020 things to happen, and I think it's brilliant, but I think you need to go back to the expanded format for anything like that to happen again.
All right, 2:09 here on OTB AM, live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We are revisiting a moment of great joy in Mayo football history in just a moment, and stay tuned as well for the latest episode of Scoreboard Jungle coming up next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The OTB Brief. Everything you need to know about sport every morning. Need to get on top of the day's sports news? Well, the OTB Brief is the only sports update you'll need every morning. With all the breaking stories, post-match reaction.
I always look about, teams who've won a league, their mindsets, their body language, their hunger, desire. And I see that so much in this Liverpool team.
And the best bits from off the ball, all in a 10-minute podcast.
Rory McIlroy's game has changed a lot.
The OTB Brief. Weekday mornings from 7:20 a.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen on the OTB Sports app.
Now you're welcome along. It's the latest edition of Scoreboard Jungle. This is our GAA quiz, which we're running right across the 2020 championship. In the lead, Dr. Khan and Mayo's Claire Egan with 10 points. We've got Claire's former teammate with us, Cora Staunton. You're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Are you going to beat Claire Egan? That's the question.
Doubtful.
So, round one is the take your points round. 5 questions, 30 seconds, 1 point per correct answer. Your time starts now. Who is the all-time men's senior football championship top scorer all-time?
Kieran O'Connor.
James Horan has won how many Connacht titles with Mayo as manager?
6.
Who did Carnachan beat in the 2011 All-Ireland Club Final?
Nafina.
Who captained the Mayo ladies to the 03 All-Ireland success?
Helena Lohan.
Who scored Mayo's goal in the 2017 men's football final?
Jason Doherty.
Okay, let us see where we are. It was Lee Keegan.
Yeah.
I have to take your first answer.
Yeah, it's okay.
Killian O'Connor was correct. The lads have James Horan down here as winning 5 Connacht titles, but I don't think they've included 2020, so I think you're correct in saying 6. I'm going to overrule them there and give you that one. Who did Carnachan beat in the 2011 club final? Nafina was correct. And I mean, if you hadn't got Helena Lohan wrong, that would be poor on your part. So that's correct as well. That is a very tidy 4 out of 5. Nice start. Okay, round 2, going for goal. This is sudden death, but you get 3 points per correct answer. And again, it's 30 seconds, maximum of 5 questions. Your time starts now. So for Cavan, who kicked the winning point for Cavan against Monaghan in this year's Ulster Championship?
Rory Gallagher, the goalkeeper.
Raymond Gallagher.
Raymond Gallagher, yeah, sorry.
All right, sorry, sudden death has hit you.
That's okay.
4 points. You were off to a very good start. You got it in the end. Listen, thanks a million for doing that, for being a brilliant sport. And best of luck in Australia. Give them hell. Have a great season again. Enjoy the sunshine. Think of us during the cold months.
I will. Thanks for having me on.
Okay.
This Christmas, get all the non-stop Premier League action with a Now TV, Sky Sports or Sports Extra pack. Watch over 40 games this December with the biggest names in the league. Gets it from Fernandes. Stream every game or only pay for the ones you want. Your sport on your terms with Now TV. 18 plus ROI only. Month passes sold separately and auto-renew. Minimum speed 2.5 megabits per second. Terms apply.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
6 minutes past 9 here on OTB AM. During the ads there, you saw the latest Scoreboard Jungle with Cora Staunton. A good start, and unfortunately just got caught in sudden death. There's a special remote roadshow coming your way this week, sponsored by SuperValu, proud sponsors of the 2020 Championship. The hashtag is support where you're from. It's obviously our All-Ireland football final preview. You'll be hearing it tonight, tomorrow and Saturday on the radio on Off the Ball on Newstalk. Our schedule today on OTB Sports Radio, loads of great stuff. Wexford 1956, that's the theme. The 50s is the theme of the next 15 minutes or so. Art Foley and Ned Wheeler, 2 late great Wexford hurlers, talking to us about their time in the 50s. State of the Union with Philip Brown at 3 o'clock. That's Keith Wood's State of the Union, our discussion in the midst of the pandemic about what was coming next for rugby. And a lot of those conversations still very pressing because nothing much has been settled. Retro panel on dealing with disappointment at 4 o'clock. That's a Saturday panel discussion. And then OTB Gold, Mick O'Connell at 80. Proving he could still dish it out off the pitch as well as he could on the pitch back in the day. A reminder, of course, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Owen.
This morning, we are paying tribute to the Mayo team of 1951 because there is a chance, believe it or not, this week that the team of 1951 is going to fade into insignificance, that it will be the team of 2020 that people will be talking about for the next 70 years as Mayo go on and chase All-Ireland again for 70 years after winning 1 or 2. So hopefully we can do this again next year. But if not, we have been looking back on the 1951 team because the Irish Film Institute is hosting footage on its homepage right now of that 51 final in all its glorious good quality. So you can head on to ifiplayer.ie to watch the full package with Micheál O'Hare's commentary on it. It's absolutely brilliant. I've picked out a few bits for us to use this morning because maybe, I don't know what you think of football in the 1950s, Ger, but when I think of 1950s football, I think of hoofing and I think of maybe a little bit of a lack of nuance or maybe in times a little bit of a lack of class. But I'll hold up my hands and say I was badly wrong because in 1951, Mayo put up 2-8, I should say, to Meath's 9 points. And the first of the goals on that occasion was scored by Tommy Langan. And it might well be the first recorded instance of a Thunder bastard being scored in Gaelic games. Have a look at this.
The ever-active Tom Langan gets the ball in his hand and crashes his way through for a goal that does much to put his county on the road to victory.
Screamer. We're going to have to give that in slow motion here again. So have a look at this in slow motion.
Wow.
Takes it.
That's a bounce.
The technique here.
Oh, ankle breaker.
Right hand, left foot.
Oh, wow.
Top corner. Postage stamp. I didn't know that they could score goals like that back in 1951, but they could. Tommy Langan, obviously an absolute legend in Mayo, a legend of GAA at the time. He was one of only 2 men from the county to make the team of the millennium in 1999. And it is hard, in fairness, to get a great appreciation of how good these players are, but thankfully we have this footage. We also have Paddy Prendergast, a full-back on that team. And we'll get back to the footage in just a moment, but here he is talking about Tommy Langan in recent years. This is from an interview done on a YouTube channel called Mal Abbeyside. Apologies if it's from somewhere else, but Mal Abbeyside is hosting this on YouTube at the moment. It's only got a few hundred views, and here he is talking about the greatness of Langan.
And the training was fairly tough too. Oh, Christ, Langan used to be playing on me like, you know, well, he was, God forgive me, he was a whore. Like you couldn't watch him. He was, first of all, he must have more bones than every 5 men put together, you know. Elbows and knees and you know, and a tremendous footballer, of course. He was the original full forward, I can tell you that. And I have never seen better than him, you know. Wonderful.
Wow, that's high praise / you know, kind of insulting.
I think that was probably the archetype of the full forward, if I'm guessing, that you needed to be fairly robust as well as obviously being unbelievably talented. Let's get back to the game and let's get back to a little bit of that footage, because there are more goals where that came from. Joe Gilvary was another member of that full forward line. And, well, this Mayo team could finish. So let's just have a look at this one.
Brian Smith and Paddy Meaghan are in the thick of the fray, as always. And now for the movement that brings Mayo's second goal, as Dixon passes to Sean Mulderrig. He gets the ball through to Joe Gilvary, and he sends through his goal to make the half-time score. Mayo, 2 goals and 3 points. Meath, 8 points.
It's like the goal Jack McCaffrey scored against Cork that time from an acute angle, and the pick-up in the middle of the park as well, absolutely astonishing. Let's have a look at the goal again in slow motion.
Square ball. Oh no, he's just on the edge of it. Lucky. Oh, look at that tackle. Look at that mean man tackle. Wow. Did you see that? That was unbelievable. Oh.
The one thing that has never changed is Meath. Meath have always been Meath. Meath in the 80s and the 90s is the same as Meath in 1951. Brilliant team as well. But, I mean, Tommy Langan needed to have his elbows and his shins and his
He'd never walk again if that tackle had landed the way it was supposed to on the man's knee that he was trying to break.
Can we see that again in slow motion one more time?
Watch the Meath man coming in on the left of the screen. Here, so off screen still. Watch. Now, look. Oh. Wow.
What a finish. And, yeah, that was a potential ankle breaker.
The white jerseys, the all-white strip.
So they wore that as, obviously, the Connacht strip at the time. And then Meath were wearing the blue of Leinster. I'm going to get corrected on that immediately, I know. But definitely the white of Connacht. So Mayo wouldn't be wearing their...
Connacht white?
They weren't wearing their traditional strip once you get to actually represent your province.
Did you just make up the Connacht white thing, or is that true?
No, that's true.
Is it?
Yeah, that's true. Go and double check that. Because we've got a little bit more to go through here, because outside of this, the rest of the forward unit is brilliant as well. So I was under the impression that Gooch was the best dummier of a ball in GAA history. But it turns out I'd never watched Mick Flanagan play for Mayo. So we're going to look at this Eamon Mongie score for Mayo and the kick pass before the point. So tell me, watch this kick pass before the point, tell me this is not a deliberate dummy from Flanagan.
Dixon and Mick Flanagan pave the way for Eamon Mongie to score a point.
Absolutely outrageous. We got that dummy in slow motion here again. Like, tell me this is deliberate. Am I too naive to think that this was...
Which bit now? That's a nice
here we go.
It's a pass. That's not a dummy, that's a pass.
No, so can we just play that again? So the dummy is that the lad thinks he's going for a point.
Oh, okay, right.
So he gives him the eyes. He's like, this is going over the bar. And then it's like, no, look, he sent your man the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it's just beautifully into the line of Mongy who's coming through. I'm giving him the credit for that.
The kicking style where you throw your arms back and just welly it is it's class.
When did like left hand, left foot, right hand, right foot actually come into GEA? Because this was certainly, everybody's playing football there like they're David De Gea. Everybody's playing like a soccer goalkeeper at that moment. So it's I wonder when it actually changed like that. So we heard from Paddy Prendergast a moment ago, and the last bit of footage I want to play from this game itself is from Prendergast in action, because I think we all accepted they don't make full-backs like they used to. And Prendergast, who's the only surviving member today of that team, was as hard as nails and an absolutely brilliant man at just lumping the ball out of the defence, hoofing it, because that was the style of play at the time. So we've put together a couple of his moments from the game that day.
Has urged the Meath side to further attacks with Matty MacDonald, Brian Smith and the inevitable man in the cap, Peter McDermott, figuring in the chief actions. But Mayo's full back line with Paddy Prendergast settling down to his brilliant game foiled the challengers.
Was that a free?
No, this is 1951.
Paddy Meagan adds his well-placed kick.
Oof. Boom. Just get it out of there. Get it out of there. Now, this is, like, when you think about that whole team, I think maybe people will remember the goals. I'm just guessing here, but I presume that the Langan goal, for example, is something that's like remembered in the annals of history when it comes to Mayo GEA. But that whole defence is also really impressive. And we can also have a listen to what Paddy Prendergast, from the same interview that we heard a moment ago, talking about that teak, tough Mayo full back line. Have a listen to this.
I don't know, Eamon was telling me, and Mongy was telling me some years ago about the number of games we played where no score had been registered against any member of the full back line. And that was mostly due to Flanagan and Ford, actually, because I was minded, I could see it, I could, go for a ball without worry about it, because I knew that my men were covered, And Mr. Flanagan would have his man nailed to the ground on the side. And of course Ford, the same on the other side. And Ford wouldn't let the wind at you,
So you mentioned Ford and Sean Flanagan there. Sean Flanagan, the other member outside of Tommy Langan, who actually made it into the team of the millennium in 1999. I don't think we just have a good enough appreciation until you watch that footage of how brilliant that team was. Obviously, multiple All-Ireland winners. It wasn't just about 1951, most of them. Just sensational footballers. As I say, you can watch the full package with Micheál O'Hare's commentary on IFIplayer.ie right now, all for free. And the IFI, I should say, also have a fascinating collection of sports documentaries that are now available to rent nationwide on their IFI at Home series, and you can get them for $3.99 each. You can get Katie, you can get Crash and Burn, and George Best, all by myself, are up there if you go to ifihome.ie. But I also started looking at the match programme from 1951 because I got into a little bit of a wormhole, as you do on All Ireland Week. Here's the cover of the programme that day, which I just love. The 4 pence was the cost price of that.
It's a beautiful design. It's sparse. Like, I realise that obviously every little bit of difficulty was another 4 hours of typesetting and printing, but it looks cool.
Absolutely. I did see a website yesterday auctioning one of those programmes for €400.
And you bought it?
I bought it, yeah, and I scanned it, and that's why we have it here today. But no, this morning we're giving it to you for free on OTB AM. My favourite thing from match programmes in the 1950s, and I didn't know this was a thing, was that they actually give you advice on things to say when you're sitting there in the stand. Instead of saying, good game, or isn't this great, you can actually say stuff in Irish. Have a look at this. They've got a glossary of things.
Harlan. Boyega. Right.
I love the fact that... There is a translation, number 9 there, in case you wanted to say, there are people here from all quarters. Imagine turning to the person beside you and saying that the one at the bottom, it is a magnificent game. Sor Cluiche, I think, goes for the 1951 final, and Cluiche Brahe, number 6 there, it is a fine game. More of this in programmes, please. I know that they print the words to our Naveen in match programmes, and they've got good quizzes and all that. Give us small talk, Oscuelga. This is the way match programmes should be. But also, if that isn't the thing that you appreciate most from those programmes, advertising in the programmes in the 1950s, always the best. Good old cigarette ads. You can say that again. Afton are better now, with one of the characters there saying, you can tell at once, yes, they're just perfect, says the other one. Until you try Afton, you have no idea how good they really are. Bring back the 1950s and cigarette advertising. And then finally, the picture of the hard as nails Mayo team printed in the programme before they were to become the immortal team of 1951. And that is where our journey ends.
Do you follow that account of footballers who look older than they are that has been on Twitter? There's if you can stick that back up for us again there, the picture of the team, because they look like they could win many of those competitions. There's the guy in the front left there looks like he's about 50, but sure.
That's Mongy.
Right.
Yeah, that is. So Eamon Mongy wasn't factored into footballers ageing badly into that discussion, but he would have won the World Cup in that one, so they missed out big time on him.
The white jerseys were cool, and you're right, they were the Connacht jerseys. The most recent interprovincial ones that I could find have kind of like a top half white and then blue, kind of bottom of the belly and blue shorts, and you're like, just go with the all-white Real Madrid. You've got this amazing opportunity to maybe not sell a lot of jerseys. Maybe a lot of people aren't going to buy Connacht hurling or football jerseys, but they might. They look cool, I thought.
Yeah, and it has obviously been the year for the very old jersey with Tipperary and their 1920 jersey, so I presume they're hopping off the shelves at the moment for Christmas presents and tip.
Al on YouTube, sure, Jared probably has great memories from going to those games. Must have been no younger than 18 at the time.
Thank you, Al, for brightening my morning with that.
You were making old jokes for him, mate. So we finally discovered your burner on YouTube. 20 minutes past 9 this morning, we can run you through some of the stories that are happening in the newspapers today. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Darragh O'Shea's like a robot. Shane Keegan talking about Sam Allardyce's appointment. Is it good or bad news? We're not sure. The best team lost. That's Jose Mourinho last night. Everton burst Leicester bubble with King Power win. And that's what the EPCR told us. Ronan O'Gara last night talking about the COVID issues in the Champions Cup. And Gabriel getting sent off, Arteta blaming the players again. So I don't know if I don't know what the Arsenal supporters, what their state of chaos is like after that 1-1 draw last night. Owen, maybe you could give us an insight into that.
Good point against a top 4 team. I mean, Arsenal are back, baby.
Yeah, well, you've got to stop the rot. Like, do you think they're going to sack Mikel Arteta?
No.
Before the end of the season?
Maybe.
But I don't think they will. I think it could get, I don't know how bad it gets. I think they'll just let him limp on to the end of the season.
Not if they're in a relegation battle. I think they'll have to change it up. Like, you obviously can't get relegated. It's clearly just been a massive underperformance, though, is the thing, that they surely have faith that there will be an upturn soon, because the players are more than good enough, and not more than good enough to maybe qualify for the Champions League, but to be better than 14th position in the Premier League, especially when it gets crystallised that Theo Walcott is scoring goals against you in the middle of a Premier League season.
Well, of course it was going to be Theo Walcott this year of all years. There's actually no headlines apart from the matches and the back pages of most of the papers, except chaos looming in Champions Cup with COVID committee to decide results. This isn't great. At the bottom of the story, though, is Harry Byrne is in line for his first European start for Leinster against Northampton. He replaced his brother Ross on last week's win over Montpellier and looks set to wear the number 10 jersey at the RDS. So we could have had this weekend, if Ben Healy hadn't been injured, we could have had 2 21-year-olds starting at out half for Ireland, and all of a sudden everything looking a little bit more interesting, exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a bit of a log jam at this point, isn't there, for the Leinster playmaker role whenever Sexton moves on or whenever Sexton's injured. So you've got Ross Byrne, who was the heir apparent. You've got his brother, who is pushing him all the way, clearly. And then you've got Kieran Frawley, who is finding a bit of form, but as a number 12 now.
Yeah, but Frawley keeps getting game time. They keep putting him in the team. That's the sign of the player who might actually be the best of all. It's like, we must put this player in the team, even though it's not in the right position. But, you wouldn't be terribly surprised if actually they find that he is the one that they decide is the 10 and everybody else is like backup 12 or there's a really interesting story developing. The Harlequins Munster beef is real rivalry is on. Danny Kerr is the cause of this, right? Danny Kerr was on the BBC's Rugby Union Weekly podcast. This is in Jerry Thornley's piece today, the Irish Times. There was a couple of 50-50 decisions went against us, a couple of Irish linesmen, but we won't say anything more than that. Don't need to, Danny. We know what you're saying. You're suggesting some kind of bias on their part. We're not stupid. We understand the implication. But go on. I've heard they're all complaining about late hits. Ask Mike Brown about late hits and why he didn't come back on the pitch. He was KO'd. But nothing came of that. And then we took a couple of yellow cards for it. You go after every 10. Anything that we done to their 10 wasn't not done to our players. We thought we were playing PSG a couple of times with all the rolling around and diving and complaining. It's a physical sport. Sometimes, obviously, they got the better of it at the weekend. Well done to them. We look forward to the rematch in January. I love the game. It was niggly Ireland-England. Made me feel like I was back in a test match environment. Oh, that's nice. And then they brought this up to Conor Murray, who was obviously out doing press yesterday. And, it's a podcast, says Conor Murray. It's a podcast. There's so much talk in podcasts these days. It's just lads chatting. To be honest with you, I don't think anything is meant by it. I'm sure if you ask Ben Healy if it was a dive, I don't think so. And then there's another one about this. I'm not digging back at anyone because I know what podcasts are like. They're lads having a bit of crack. I don't even know if I'll hear it or whatever. But nah, I don't think it's fair comments. Conor not having the massive boom in podcasts.
Well, fair play to him for defending the fact that Ben Healy possibly didn't dive, considering he's actually crocked and out injured. I would like to think that that's probably all the proof you need that the man didn't dive.
Sam Allardyce is back. Big Sam Allardyce on a 7-figure rescue bonus. It's either 1 million or 2 million. That's quite a big difference, you know. I'd like to. Is your prize 100 quid or 200 quid? Is it 100 million, 200 million? Is it 1 million or 2 million? You know, there's maybe Big Sam. It's not that much of a big deal for Big Sam anymore. He's so rich anyway. And that's the same stories are in the back of the Herald. As I said, not much going on. It's all about Bobby Firmino and his celebration, which was epic.
Brilliant. It was like Emmanuel Adebayor, but without the rubbish being thrown at him because he was celebrating in front of his own fans, obviously. It did seem that he didn't go all the way to, right up to the cop. I wonder, was that, COVID reasons, that if he went close, there would have been, a congregation of fans? Or what was the thinking behind that? But he got far enough, and it was, it was, regardless of who you support, it was pretty nice to actually see an individual gravitate towards a bunch of fans once again. And it's also just so much better than the fake crowd noise. Even if it's only 2,000 people, it actually sounds much louder. It sounds far more crisp. Even there's a small group of people making legitimate noises, and I think your attention kind of sparks a lot more watching a game like that.
Underrated narrative ahead of the weekend, the role of Kieran McDonald. Cillian O'Connor has been praising him. Firstly, he brings a sense of fun, a bit of crack, and just a real enthusiasm for the game. It's all about kicking the ball. It's all about having fun. It's all about taking on shots and taking on your man. There's nothing cautious or careful. It's just kick the ball, move the ball, play and have fun and play with a smile. That's infectious. And then I think being progressive, getting your head up and moving it on and taking it in the play, a solo and a bounce out of it. He's a forwards man, he's a footballer, and it's great to have another voice like that because he will see things that will resonate with us. Is that what Maurice Fitz is doing in Kerry, or is Maurice Fitz more of a coach for the whole team? Do you know?
I don't know, to be honest. I think Kieran McDonald is more hands-on than Maurice Fitzgerald is in Kerry. I think Kieran McDonald has probably got a higher role. I think Maurice Fitzgerald is often in the stands watching Kerry, right, whereas Kieran McDonald is always in the sideline, I'm pretty sure, isn't he, with James Horan and another member of the backroom team, I think. So it just suggests to me that he's a bit more hands-on, and obviously he's kicking points before games and looks brilliant and looks like he could still do a job in a corner forward. But it's good to hear that enjoyment is actually at a premium, and they're focusing on that, because really, you could hear from Jack McCaffrey even over the last few weeks saying that the enjoyment has gone out of the game so much, and if you can find that and you're Mayo, then that just makes things doubly as easy than it would be in previous years.
Yeah, I wonder, is there any chance of Jack falling back in love with the game? Or is there a way to manage that so that you can have him involved at a level that is the right level for him and that doesn't annoy his teammates? Difficult balancing act to get right, but obviously it would be worth it in his case if you could do it. The different role of the coaches, and really interesting listening to Kieran Donaghy earlier on talk about how the Dubs and their defence is going on. There was really brilliant coverage, I thought, from Sky of the hurling final, where there was two things that were very interesting. It was having somebody behind the goals. It was Nash, who was just on Hill 16 watching the game from behind, explaining what was happening, what the puck-out strategy of both teams were when they were playing in front of them. Obviously the second half was less relevant because the game was so dominant, but James O'Connor did a brilliant bit of analysis at half-time on the telestrator, where he explained about how the zonal marking of the Limerick halfbacks was working, and they had, again, footage from behind the goals of where one of the Waterford players made a run, a fairly obvious run from one side to the other, and how Limerick the communication levels were excellent to pass it on. It's the type of analysis that you see in American football a good bit, but I hadn't seen it in hurling where they were actually physically showing you the bit where this is what Limerick are doing and this is where their strength is coming from, and this is why you never see their halfbacks really pulled out of position, and the opposition don't really know what to do with that. They're trying loads of stuff and they're trying to be as innovative as possible. But I don't know, I just thought that level of coverage was excellent, and hopefully we'll get some of that about the Dubs the weekend as opposed to, because the team are excellent and their achievements are incredible, and the players, like what the role of Cluxton in all this, if we just have a conversation about funding, and let's have that conversation about funding, and let's have the conversation about splitting Dublin, but if we just do that in the week of games, we forget to have the conversation about Stephen Cluxton being an icon of Irish sport. Like, we did our Mount Rushmore. I could find you somebody who makes the compelling case that of all of the sports, of the hurling and football, of the indigenous sports, that Cluxton is the one that you want representing, because the narrative arc is like getting sent off in an All-Ireland semi-final and being blamed by the manager in the aftermath. They tell me he had a kick. If he had a kick, he had to go. That's what Tommy Lyons said about him, and it's like, well, you took off your centre back and they stormed through the middle of your defence. Maybe you should take some responsibility. From that point, like, it's David Beckham-esque, where you're the one who is the epitome of the flakiness of the Dublin team, losing it in a moment where everything is against you, where the All-Ireland was right there for you, and then you become the definition of the hard work and the complexity and the smarts and the physical strength. Do we lose all that this week because it's like, split Dublin, too much money?
Maybe because of that, but also because of the fact that he's been around for so long and every conversation seems to have been had about him. The thing about Cluxton is that it's just so metronomic in terms of his form. It's at a high level all the time. There isn't really...
That's insane.
It is. And also what is more impressive on top of that is you get these moments within games sometimes where a really good standard of opposition will force Stephen Cluxton to kick a ball over the sideline, or he will get intercepted and it'll look like this moment where Stephen Cluxton screws up. By and large, that is the opposition putting him under pressure, and by and large, Stephen Cluxton overcomes that really good opposition to nail his next few kickouts and be absolutely perfect. He was unbelievable in that drawn game last year in the All-Ireland final. He is the reason why Dublin have 5 in a row. Jack McCaffrey in a close second as the reason as well, and of course Benton's up there. But the two of them, McCaffrey and Cluxton in particular in that drawn game last year, were absolutely incredible. And it is one of the things that you miss about not actually being at games. It's just how much you can appreciate from a low, if you're sitting low in the Cusack or Hogan stand, how much you can appreciate those kickouts from Cluxton. They're absolutely sublime, and we can of course should be having the conversation about all the elements that go into making Dublin so strong. But I do think one of the elements that will make them weaker is the retirement of Stephen Cluxton whenever that does happen.
Yeah.
And it could be 5 years yet.
It could be. I mean, there's no sign, no physical sign, so it'll just be about how long he wants to do it. 9:32 this morning. Let me tell you about what's coming up on Off the Ball on News Talk this evening from 7 o'clock. John Giles ahead of Manchester United against Leeds. Vinnie Perth, always great to listen to, and our Super Value Roadshow. It's our All-Ireland football final preview this weekend on Sunday. Spurs against Leicester. Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr on duty for that one. Big game for Spurs to get back at it. Big game for Leicester if they aren't just flirting with being a top 4 team. Manchester United against Leeds. Man United playing tonight against Sheffield United, and all of a sudden a home game against Leeds, who spanked Newcastle last night, is no gimme. So Nathan and Vinnie Perth on commentary duty for that one. Tipstar Aisling Maloney is at the ladies football final, women's football final for Dublin against Cork on Saturday. Claremont O'Byrne against Munster in the Heineken Champions Cup. Johnny Murphy alongside Neil Tracy in the commentary booth for that one. 5:30 kickoff, and David Brady is at the All-Ireland football final. It's Dublin against Mayo, and if Mayo win, well, there is no place on earth that you want to be other than listening to David Brady for that one. And if they lose, there's probably no place on earth you want to be but listening to DB for that one as well. So he's a brave man to share so publicly whatever is going to happen on Saturday, but we wish him well nonetheless. Right, Ronan O'Gara, it's a very, very interesting time for European rugby with the COVID games missing. So he spoke to us last night on Wednesday Night Rugby. That's next.
Now, you're very welcome back to this Wednesday's Off the Ball. Neil Tracy with you this evening until 10 o'clock on News Talk. Time to talk rugby now. Ronan O'Gara is with me on the line from France. Ronan, good evening.
Hey Neil, how's it going?
I'm not too bad now. I imagine you're feeling quite good. La Rochelle, good start to the season in the league, and that followed through into Europe. Solid win against Edinburgh. Had to grind it out on Saturday evening.
Yeah, we did. It was a tough game. Conditions were difficult. And it was all about getting the result. It was a difficult game. We know coming up against the Celtic nations how much they prioritise the Champions Cup. So Edinburgh had a lot of their Scottish internationals returning, yeah, it wasn't a classic by any means, far from it. But at this stage of the competition, especially with the compact format, it's all about getting the result, and we did do that, and that means we're alive and we go well into round 2 now.
Yeah, you've Bath this weekend, and I was kind of curious as well, but the home advantage is something that was spoken about over the weekend. You were one of the 7 of 12 away victories across the weekend, 7 of those 8 on Saturday as well. Is that a trend you've spotted over the last few months in France as well? Like, we know how notoriously difficult it is, particularly in the top 14, how big the home advantage is. Have you noticed that trend kind of differing ever so slightly with either small crowds or next to no crowds?
Yeah, I had a good chat about this topic with Mike Prendergast today. And it's probably a disadvantage playing at home, because you're kind of used to, I suppose, people have imagery and visualization and powerful moments of playing in front of their public before the live game that happens in their head for that 80 minutes. So it is very, very strange. But obviously, if you're going to an away ground, everything is a little bit new for you and you're not familiar with it. So it's probably easier to get your mindset right, or your, I suppose, potentially nothing to lose approach to those games. So this weekend, it's Bath, and there's obviously no supporters, and you just wonder how long this can last for, because you felt it in the Po away game. It's just such a hollow feeling for players in terms of just the different, I suppose, levels of adrenaline. It feels like advanced training session, but obviously the stakes are so much higher than that. Yeah, so I think when all this is probably over, it'll be interesting, I suppose, to be some great feedback out of it in terms of home advantage, and it does really make it a 50-50 game, because there's no external forces really against you. It's a rugby pitch and you just go at it.
Mm-hmm. It was something I really noticed on Sunday. I was down in Thomond Park. We were doing commentary of Munster and Harlequins, and during the 40 minutes of the first half, we'll say, because we had the cans on and we're talking constantly, didn't really appreciate just how quiet it was until the players went in at half-time. We took our cans off, and all of a sudden that silence hit us, and I actually felt very self-conscious all of a sudden. I went, oh my God, everyone around me heard every single word I said over these last 40 minutes. Probably even JJ Hanrahan or Marcus Smith, when they were standing over kicks, and we were probably talking through it as well.
Yeah, it is. It's I suppose the great thing from a coaching point of view is that you really get to see the people able to communicate on their run. There's one thing being able to communicate, the other thing is probably being able to communicate when your heart is, going over 180 beats per minute. So talking on the run is a skill. Listening on the run is probably a greater skill. And it is very interesting, I suppose, the feedback you get from the 4 different views that you get from the EPCR. So you're actually able to get great feedback in terms of, asking the boys in terms of what play did we play there, and that develops into a discussion about why we played it and what did you see. But also in terms of on the defensive side of the ball, it's very easy to hear people talking, because the video doesn't lie, and the ref mic doesn't lie, and if there's silence, it's very easy to pick it out, and you can really get into some detailed conversations with your players.
And have there kind of been instances with guys on your own team where you've been at games and you've been able to hear what they've been saying out on the pitch, and all of a sudden you might be thinking about a player, well, he's doing a lot more communicating out there, he's doing a lot more leadership on the ground than maybe I'd given him credit for in the past?
Yeah, you're always learning, Neil. It's a very interesting point, I think, and sometimes you're you can be potentially swayed by live GPS and your access to that in a game, and potentially seeing a guy, he mightn't be hitting maybe the figures you want him to hit, but also what's more important is actually his capacity to, I suppose, to hit accurate feedback or hit accurate comms with his players inside and outside with him. So from that point of view, these few weeks or months have been extremely interesting from that point of view. And you can see the younger players too, in terms of just if they're playing probably in wider positions, whether they're able to talk, or if this occasion with no crowd has got to them by the fact that they just aren't communicating. We know in all sport, especially at the highest level, I suppose the more you communicate, the easier the game becomes for you.
Yeah, it's quite interesting as well. On the games themselves, like you mentioned at the start as well, just kind of how cutthroat this season is going to be with the shortened format of the pool stages. From that point of view, it's kind of disappointing to see like Chris Boyd, the Northampton head coach, talking about how they'll give some youngsters a run this weekend against Leinster because they were beaten at the weekend, and beaten narrowly as well. Like, it was such a small defeat, and to all of a sudden be borderline chucking in the towel away to Leinster this weekend after just one game. Like, with less games, bonus points are absolutely huge all of a sudden, and points difference is going to be huge. From your own point of view as a head coach in a pool with Leinster and with Northampton, how do you kind of feel about that when you see a coach basically saying we're going to be sending out the second team or the third team?
Yeah, I think it's such we could talk about this for hours because there's so many different, I suppose, avenues you can explore it on. For me, I think when you're in Wales or Scotland or Ireland and you play in the Pro 14, there isn't relegation. So it's a completely different mindset. The players get ready for European Cup and they get ready for test matches. If you're in the Premiership, you're in the top 14, you've 26 league games without any playoffs, and then you've Europe, and then you've French internationals on top of that. So it's a completely different landscape of what you're talking about. You know, straight out with you, if we didn't get a result in Murrayfield, I'd be talking to John O'Gibbs about it. Okay, what's our priority? Our priority is doing the best you can in the top 14. What doing the best in your top 14 looks like is, well, what people deserve an opportunity to play this weekend. And it comes back to, a lot of the teams now are loaded with 35, 36, 40 professional players. So I don't think anyway in a club your language of the second team or the third team, that wouldn't be used in La Rochelle, for example, because a team will win you a game, but if you want to challenge for silverware, you need a group. So that would be something the way I would look upon it. But I can completely understand Chris Boyd in terms of what his board of directors, what his chief executive, what all the people in Northampton, in that proud town, they need to stay in the Premiership. That's their goal now. They realise they didn't get a result at home. They're going to Leinster, the European champions, the dominant team in Europe for so many years. They'll give guys an opportunity. I don't think I think it's very easy to probably give an opinion on something where you're competing in a league, which the definition of a league, I would suppose, if there's relegation and there's champions. Yes, there's champions in the Pro 14, but there's no relegation. I think it's very, very different when you live outside and you experience what happens in the top 14, what happens to the towns that go down, what happens to the teams that go down, what happens in the Premiership if you get relegated. It kills the cities, it kills the clubs. It's a complete different pressure, it's a complete different landscape. So from that point of view, I think there is so much to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we have a situation then in crossing the other pool where we've 2 games cancelled, Toulouse, Exeter, and Glasgow against Lyon because of a COVID outbreak with Exeter. We still don't know how the points are going to be divvied out on this. Was there communication with the clubs before the competition started this season about what could potentially happen if if games were to be called off?
To the best of my knowledge, and I hope I'm accurate on this, but I think it's 5 points for the team without COVID and 0 points for the team with COVID. So bonus point wins for
Toulouse and Lyon.
Yes. Which, we say you can control the controllables. The reality is there is a certain amount of responsibility and diligence involved in having protocols implemented for COVID, but the reality is that can hit any rugby club at any stage. So what happens in round 2 may happen to our club in round 4, may happen to any other club in Europe. I don't think you can control that. What the rules of the competition were, and because it was read out in a staff meeting, this is it's 5 points for the team that forfeit, or 0 points for the team that forfeit the game, and 5 points for the team that are on the receiving end. So it's bonus time for Toulouse and Lyon, isn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose with the Glasgow-Lyon game, that's even tougher on Glasgow when you consider that they haven't necessarily had a single positive case. They've had this game cancelled just for close contact things because of, Scottish government guidelines.
Yes. Yeah. It's just such a bizarre, I suppose, season, and ever since March. But I suppose the plus side of it is that rugby's gone ahead. The flip side is this, that everything shuts down, and we don't want that to happen again. It was a very, very bleak period. We need to keep this going as best we can.
I suppose that is true. Big implications then as well on Claremont against Munster this Saturday. We'll have commentary of that game as well, by the way, for those listening, on Saturday evening, 5:30 kickoff. Myself and Johnny Murphy will be on commentary for that game. We mentioned the home advantage or lack thereof. You had a good win against Claremont much further back into the start of the campaign, back in August. Can you kind of give us I suppose for those that would only have maybe seen them at the weekend against Bristol, when, granted, they put 51 points on them, but how have they been going this season? What kind of game are they playing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the season started with a big game at home in the rearranged quarter-final, so Claremont Racing, and Racing comfortably won in Claremont, which was probably a surprise to me. I expected it to be a really close game, but when I got to kind of analyse the game again, Racing were comfortable victors, and I thought, I think Claremont are in a bit of a transition period, and I genuinely felt that. But then they've really hit their strides in the top 14. I think they've won an awful lot of games, and they've played extremely well. And then I think maybe after 6 wins in a row, or close to that, maybe they lost at home to Montpellier, which I suppose very few people saw. And then the following week they go away to Bristol and they put 50 points on a team that was probably expected to be a 50-50 game. So they have some obviously really, really good players. They have a lot of competition for places, I suppose, emphasised by the fact that you have Para or Bezi at 9. And Lopez is going well at 10, and Matashima from the Japanese national team has, obviously we saw him score a hat-trick at the weekend, and they have a lot of I suppose really good French Fijian players as well that shine for them, and Fritz Lee has hit form. So they are a good side, but for all of us in Munster know Claremont inside out over the last 20 years of the European Cup. The massive advantage Claremont had was their 16th man in their Yellow Army, and it was a great stadium to play in. But that's gone this weekend, and it'll feel hollow, it'll feel empty. Sorry, low battery. My apologies. Like the coach, bedtime. So it's. I see that as a 50-50 game, Neil. I was impressed with Munster against Harlequins. I thought a probably slow start and struggled to probably impose themselves, but after 20 minutes, after the disallowed try from Harlequins, you felt that there was ever going to be one winner. And watching Munster over the last, I suppose, number of campaigns in Europe, I didn't get that feeling, even if it was in Thomond Park. With a big crowd behind them, but at the weekend I thought that they looked probably a lot more confident in what they were doing. It was good to see.
Yeah, we'll get to Munster, I suppose, in general in a few minutes, but they'll be without Ben Healy this week. He's ruled out for, I think, 2 to 4 weeks with the shoulder injury he picked up after those challenges from Alex Donbrandt and Joe Meyler. On Healy, that Glasgow link is growing stronger and stronger by the weeks after Danny Cipriani set off that chain reaction yesterday when he announced he was leaving Gloucester. Adam Hastings is going to Glasgow. And then all of a sudden the talk of Glasgow being interested in Ben Healy went from what maybe some people thought was an agent doing a bit of kite flying and generating a bit of interest to all of a sudden it's kind of, there's an out half-shaped hole at Scotstoun and they are going all in for Ben Healy, and it's a tricky situation when the IRFU and Munster can't do any negotiations with him until the start of January because they've put their contract negotiations on hold. I suppose he's in a great bargaining position is probably one way of putting it.
Yeah, yes and no. I think it's a very simple question for me. Does he want to play for Scotland or does he want to play for Ireland? So I think it obviously becomes very, very attractive for Scottish rugby and for Glasgow rugby in the fact that this really exciting young prospect can play for their national team. So it's a double win on their behalf if they get him to play for Scotland, and if they get him to play for Glasgow first, and if he's good enough to play for Glasgow, he'll be in the Scottish squad. So I suppose, as a boy, we all dream of playing for a country. I don't know Ben, and I know he went to school in Glenstal, obviously, but you know what I mean? If you have a lot of, I suppose, powerful connections in your family, and if one of them is Scottish, maybe that's a dream of his, to play in a blue jersey or to play in a green jersey. But I think that will decide his decision, because from what you've seen so far, it looks like that he will be wearing a test jersey. I suppose it's up to him to decide which one.
On him as a player, I suppose his rise over the last 12 months has been fairly remarkable. Like, I remember there was the game against Racing last season when people were talking about how Munster had an injury crisis at out half, and this Ben Healy kid might have to be called up and brought in. That was 11 months ago now. He's played 10 games of senior rugby, and he's a player we've been talking about pretty much consistently for about a month or 2 months now on this show even. His rise has been fairly dramatic over the last year.
You have, and it hasn't been like, I think Jordan Larmour probably had a similar impact when he hit the scene. Yes, potentially you could say that was a test level, and it was, but I think sometimes we're desensitised when we're in a rugby bubble and we don't give enough credit, and Ben Healy deserves an awful lot of credit because every opportunity he's gotten, is it 9 or 6 months, or is it 12 months he's shone for? I would probably say 6 or 9, but I think the most pleasing point from an out half's point of view was I was astounded, obviously, at his goal kicking in terms of just how easy he made that skill, and not being affected by any nerves at that age is a tremendous quality to have. But I think what you saw in the Harlequins' little, I suppose, cameo was he looked far more comfortable with ball in hand and attacking the gain line, and I suppose getting people running off and people's understanding of Ben with ball in hand was very, very good. And that, for me, I probably had question marks about, even though he's so young. But if you're young, you still get judged on the hardest of criteria if you want to play for your country. So I was wondering, could he get a backline moving? And I think he made massive strides towards that at the weekend.
Yeah, and there was a bullishness about him, and there seems to be a bullishness about kind of quite a few of these young guys coming through at Munster at the moment. Craig Casey obviously has been playing a good bit as well. Gavin Coombs got his try. He's been outstanding for a few months now. There's a crop coming through there that's really starting to excite a lot of people.
Yeah, but also too, I think if you're those players, if you've someone like Stephen Larkin coaching you, you know what I mean, you need your head examined if you're not excited by going into work with him every day. The guy was an incredible player, an incredible out half, and I think it becomes more exciting for Northern Hemisphere players, Munster players, to get someone from the other side of the world, I suppose, to stimulate different ideas, different thought process, because you know what I mean, it's an interesting discussion, because of, you look at Thomond Park, and you were there, how difficult it is to handle the ball in December and January. So you have to have a really good kicking game as a team, and you have to have and a really effective pressure game. While you go to, Sydney, or you go to Canberra, they're used to dry balls and wet and really good pitches for all year round, essentially. So they play a different style of rugby, but I think now people are beginning to appreciate, well, we have to play a different way in December and in January that you want to play in May if you want to win a European Cup. So that's the beauty of playing in Europe. You get challenged in all seasons and all types of conditions. And I think you mix that with, I think, what the traditional values of Munster, but also potential add-ons that you get from Stephen Larkham and Graham Rowntree, because that guy was a brilliant player and is a brilliant coach too, from what I hear. So the current players, you can see that there's a big transfer from what they're doing Monday to Friday onto the pitch.
How good of a chance do you give them this weekend?
I make it a 50-50 game, Neil. I think where they'll, they won't be intimidated. There won't be any external forces at them in regard to a hostile environment. If they're accurate, I think they have a great chance of winning the game.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how much you saw of Leinster, given they were playing roughly around the same time as yourselves on Saturday evening.
I had a little bit of it on the bus going to the game.
How impressive...
Cheeky beast.
Just how impressive was it, given the team they put out, like putting so many of those Irish internationals on the bench, sticking with the guys that had carried them over the last few weeks?
Yeah, well, that's a skill in itself, Neil. I don't think you can... I think that's what happens for the fellas on the couch or in the pub that gives their opinion. But, you look at how Leinster managed players for the last, I don't know, many years, but for 10 years anyway, they've been so successful. But especially under Leo Cullen, you look at it and you kind of go, wow, that's an interesting team. But that's what a successful environment looks like. Exactly the team Leinster started with and the firepower they brought on. That gives, I suppose, harmony. It gives satisfaction. It gives, I'm really valued here, even though next week I may not be in the 23. This week you look at their front row who started the game against, the front five of Montpellier. It was a phenomenal effort from a squad of players, and that's why I think you never hear of Leinster sending a second team anywhere, because they've such a good group, and that's, I suppose, what so many teams aspire to do, is they aspire to get a really competitive group, and that's the key point in professional sport.
Ronan, pleasure as always having you up.
Cheers, Neil. Thanks for the chat.
And very best luck next weekend against Bath. So that was Ronan O'Gara here on Wednesday Night Rugby.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.